I got branding like ready to go.
Branding.
I got pens.
What is that? What is
I got
that?
pens and shit. I'm like, who wants a pen? Yeah.
I got tagged in a post.
Uh-oh. We live.
Oh, no. Oh, hey, yo.
Hey.
I'm going to copy the link, though.
Does it still show when I change the...
I'm getting used to the delay right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I like
Are you watching it? Are you watching it on your phone?
Yes,
I
that's
guess
funny.
you got unlimited data. You got that Singer money.
Yeah.
We're live right now, right?
Yeah, totally live right now.
We
So
are
do
live.
not talk what we were talking about earlier because people will get hurt.
Okay.
Yeah, there will be butt
Don't
hurt.
talk about Bang Bros. Got you.
Yeah.
It's like super secret, like pre-show and post-show chatter.
Yeah. Oh, it's
Yeah.
nice and bright in there now.
Yeah,
I thought you just like doing this in the dark or something.
Bro, this is everyday orders after dark.
Yeah.
After dark.
Bang Bros.
Oh, zinger. Zinger.
Does that look stupid?
All right, who's got their volume up?
Yeah. Just mute
that probably
everything. Well, just mute
Well,
or turn the volume off the video. But you can leave it open. You can see the chat.
I love the labels you have. Like on one side.
I was just looking at the labels,
Yeah.
cracking me up.
It's just
That is fantastic.
it's just stupid. It's the best I got, bro.
You gotta make.
I
one
mean,
for
no, I
Roth.
like.
Yeah, what's his name?
Make a label for Roth in the back.
Roth?
Pizza guy.
Roth IRA.
Yeah, just put it like right at the top,
All right.
like right here.
You could just
Yeah,
put
there's
like
definitely a little
put
bit of
laborer in the back.
Can you put like I'm with stupid? Like
No, I could do this.
Pizza guy.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. Romito's Pizza.
oh my god, I'm starving to death. You're killing me.
Who took a bite out of this and put it back in?
Not me. Oh, you don't care.
Dude, I'm not gonna eat that. I got a bite taken out
you
of
got-
it.
You got buddies.
Can you make it any bigger?
Raccoons hanging out.
Good.
Might be.
It's
There
the
might be
most
like
important.
big ass raccoons.
Obviously.
Some of the
Good
dust-
lord.
Yeah, some of the dust that's in
Did they
here,
see it
I
yet?
wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah.
This office hardly gets used.
No. Yeah. No, my depth is it's not bad in here. Okay, I lied. There's like legitimate. That's a substantial amount of dust.
On top of what's already on his whole body.
Yeah. Well, hey man, like you said, I work way faster. That's all.
Why can't
Just
I?
piling through work.
I'm trying to tag.
All right,
everybody.
so we're live. We have a couple of viewers. Why don't y'all go around the horn there and introduce yourselves really quickly?
What's up? My name is Mike Singer. I own Singer Alternators, and I build alternators.
Exciting stuff.
That's
I'm John.
fitting.
I work for Custom Electric Service. I do not own it. Let's verify that for the 100th time. Let that the rest.
I
I'm not
mean,
the
honestly,
owner
I'm not gonna lie. I'm on Facebook a lot, and I thought you did.
No,
You know,
don't.
so
You really
we
don't.
do need to put that out there.
Small little pawn guy. Like the shop is like this 12,000 square foot warehouse. If I was 29 and owned that, that'd be pretty exciting, but I do not. But yeah, and this is Roth is a friend of mine who does he was like one of our first louder customers.
I came for the pizza.
Yeah, and he came for the pizza. And in case you guys start talking about box stuff and I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, we'll switch places.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Oh,
I can
I like
help a little with that.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Everyone
That's what I'm
usually
saying. You guys know about design stuff. I don't know shit about that. I'm an electrical guy. That's about it.
that
no,
was
leave it right over his face.
Yeah, I know.
Skip.
I
Leave
know.
it right over his face. I don't know if y'all are watching the live stream, but the Roth is like right across his face.
Oh, I gotta see it.
Oh, it was huge at one point. I had it the whole screen.
Fantastic.
You can't even see his face. Oh, he's watching already.
Just
It's
messing.
too much.
Not bad.
I love it.
It's funny. One of y'all knows about electrical. One of y'all knows about designs. I don't know neither. So it's just we're just.
You gotta know something. You're
Nah,
here.
I'm just here for the jokes and the pizza.
That's
There you go.
When
There
you're
you go.
around it for a certain amount of time,
Something sinks
no
in.
matter what, you're gonna gain a bunch of knowledge whether you realize it or not. After 10 years of this, man, it's just it's crazy when I try to think about if I had to teach someone else everything that I've learned and gained in the last 10 years, it would be really difficult. It would
Because
take
he
a lot
knows
of
so
time.
much. Because he knows everything.
I mean,
Still learn new stuff every day, man.
Dude, how long have you been at this, Mike?
I was just talking to Brett about it, like
10 years, right?
A little over 10 years, man. It's weird to think back, and when I was 23 and I had the Eclipse, people posting videos of like my old wagon or Eclipse or the Explorer build, stuff like that. It's really weird.
Before, but his Eclipse is why I got into audio, and I was like,
dude, that might be one of the first viral car audio videos, honestly.
Dude, for real.
Like, just
what's interesting about that video is I still have revenue sharing on it, and Google still sends me a check for that video every couple months.
37 cents every couple months.
It's not much. It's like maybe $100 or $200.
But it's every
what is it? It's to throw it up.
Well,
shit.
It proves that.
But I am allowed to swear, right? All right, I know I asked before.
Yeah. No, you can.
It proves that revenue sharing, if it's still the same as it used to be, is like a job. That's why I think like Steve Meade takes it so seriously, because if you invest the time into making videos like XO and these other guys out there, then you're definitely going to get a return on it. But the one thing I've noticed in the last 5 years is the guidelines and stuff have changed a lot. When you're already advertising something else, there's a lot of restrictions on when you want to monetize videos. So it definitely kind of changes it makes it a lot more difficult now to still do. But
yeah, there was like a big thing. Wasn't it last year? I think they call it adpocalypse. Like a lot of big YouTubers.
Yeah, people were probably catching on to the fact that it was just really outstanding residual income, really good passive income for people that, wanted to sit home and make YouTube videos. That Jenna Marbles girl is supposed to be one of the like richest YouTube people out there. There's like a list of 20 of them.
Is she hot?
No, it's that freaking Asian kid. Ryan Reviews Toys. I just
oh my god!
He
made like $100. He made $22 million.
Ignorant. It's ignorant. He just my son watches him.
He's gonna buy him a shit ton of toys.
That's all my son watches. He watches the hidden Ryan.
I thought you were gonna say Alex Choi, the kid with the Lambo that always posts all the time. He's really well known in like the high performance community. He's got a BMW M2 he's building right now also. But he explains his company. He used to own a drone company and, got into making YouTube videos. And now, like, he collaborates with all these people, dudes from Canada and stuff like that. He's just really into performance cars.
Mm-hmm. Crazy. It's the money that can be made is bananas. But speaking of your setups, Skip and I were talking the other day, and I think it was you that he asked me if you could run an entire system off just alternators and no batteries. Didn't you do that?
Are you talking about me or are you talking about John?
I'm talking about you. This is like years ago.
Whoa, one of y'all, whoever did it.
People used to talk about, disconnecting their batteries from the alternator to test an alternator, which is probably the dumbest thing you could ever do, because it makes the regulator and the alternator full field. All it means is it makes the alternator work really insanely hard, and a lot of times it can just cause a failure.
It'll just
really
happen
fast.
immediately. Yeah, it'll happen the second you pull it off.
So
it just goes. The regulator just goes. It just basically shunts, and it's over. The field transistor. It's like a dead short in the. There's like basically a little MOSFET driver. Think of it as like a MOSFET and an amp. If you just basically close that circuit like dead short, like it's probably not going to like it. That's how output sides on amps fail, right? So it's the exact same kind of setup is what's going on in there. I wish I had.
I've never done it, to answer your question.
Who's that? Somebody did that?
Because somebody posted like I forget what they posted.
Tell me, like ran a whole system off of just
like
alternators.
if you have enough alternator, you don't need batteries at all.
You need to have some form of capacity, just so you have some. You have to have some form of capacity, even if it's like one bank of caps. You need something. A regulator isn't fast enough for music. You know what I mean? So it's basically there's going to be like a 2 to. It's like the most common regulator we use. Like it's called an IN 6003. That's like the most. That's like a Lester part number, which is like a rebuilder's term for like a voltage regulator. It's the most common regulator you use, the GM regulator, that everyone uses for everything. That regulator has an 8 millisecond response time. So you have 8 millisecond. You know what I mean? Your music's obviously fluctuating faster than a rate of 8 milliseconds, right? Like if a note stops, your load off that amplifier just immediately stops because that's as fast as electricity moves, right?
This is funny because John sounds like how everyone expected me to sound.
Yeah.
Translator, okay?
Yeah,
I'll be John's translator.
I've had a couple of drinks, so I'm going to
like,
slow it down as best I can.
In translation, what John is telling you is the most common question we get every day from people. John definitely is going to get it more than me, but I just bought this high output alternator. Why are my lights still flickering? Because of the delay and load, the batteries, increasing your battery bank is going to resolve this, not the alternator.
Yes.
The alternator does not serve as a solution to stop light dimming. So that's why I posted on Facebook too, like once a year, and try to remind people, hey, buy your batteries before you buy an alternator. And people come to me and John, and they're like, wait, how come you're not trying to sell me an alternator? Because we don't want to see you break it. We want to see you.
Yeah, I want to see you actually be able to use the product the way it's intended.
Yeah, it's probably 70 or 80% battery, 20%, 30% charging. You know what I mean? So
the goal, we build batteryless systems, but the load has to be different. Like we build them for like buses. That's what I posted. I posted a video of a bus like 2 years ago, and what it is that runs 2 36-volt alternators for the cooling system in there, but it just has one bank of caps. That's all, and that's what comes in like a Greyhound bus, etc. So that's, people try to compare that to like what you can do for audio, and I did it for audio again with a bank of caps, and it didn't work because what you see is spiking because the regulator's like, okay, I'm dumping out this much current. The load stops. Now you have this 8 millisecond like delay between the alternator that's just dumping out 320 amps. If there's no load for that 320 amps to go, the voltage ramps up, right? And that's why you see spiking, and like a lot of people have, like the old self-exciting regulators that everyone used to use, the IN 6003 SEs. Those were, everybody said they always spiked. The reason why is because that has a 16 millisecond delay. It's very slow. That's like super slow, right? That's
the regulator is still running current up when there's no more load present. So
correct. So the voltage is staying up.
Voltage up.
I had one of those and I hated it.
Yeah, but
I had a self-exciting, and it would send all my 12-volt amps into protect.
It doesn't charge in the cold weather either. In the winter time, there's like somewhere between like 2 minutes to maybe a 5-minute delay. Sometimes people will get in below like 40-degree weather.
Then even the USI does that on occasions. It has to be like 5 degrees, but
it would have to be really cold.
And it has to be like a low turn-on signal too. Like if the turn-on signal is below 10 volts, it does the same thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Can you imagine a guy's frustration? He buys a $400 alt for his car and his lights still flicker. I would just be strangling guys.
But that's what we don't. That's why if someone says I want this to solve my light flickering,
I would just be
like, oh, throw a bank of caps at it, or throw 2 banks of caps at it. That'll help.
Yeah, caps.
Caps.
Batteries are not going to solve light dimming.
I would be on. I just want to bang right now, calling y'all both scammers. If that happened to me, I'm just saying.
100%.
There's just no way I'll go around it. Yeah. Not $400. That's the budget one.
Yeah, we're around the $400 range. Yeah.
But yeah, that's the biggest question everybody I think asks. Alternator or battery first? You know.
You should have battery.
Yes.
Caps are probably your best solution for light dimming. Just because it's an instant reserve, it's like instant discharge, and it stays at a certain voltage until it's out, right? I mean, that's you guys just did that. I watched that video like 20 times. That video of the single bank of caps that you did, how much power output. I was trying to figure out how I could use that on like an alternator video, and I was like, I really want it because that was you who did that, right? Who did the
you mean
versus
single bank of caps?
You
versus
mean
the Group 31s?
Yeah.
You mean the one recently?
No,
this was like maybe a couple weeks ago.
No, that was Derek. That was Derek.
What about those JY sticks? What happened with those? Should I ask?
Oh, that was my
juice box. The juice box sticks.
I don't think the world was ready for those. You know what happened is he had a couple of prototype ones that got mixed in with his production ones. And those two overheated and burned the whole bank down. Not burned the whole truck down, but they just overheated and
I understand.
Yeah, Alex.
You know how the internet is, dude. I mean, social media.
This conversation, it can kind of go anywhere. So as far as like lithium goes, what I wanted to actually ask you guys about, because I'm locked in my shop constantly building alternators, and I'm trying to keep up with all the changes in the battery industry right now. What is the deal with this MySolar stuff? Like, why are there some people out there that are like swearing up and down that this is the best shit there is, nothing else is better?
Depends on your charge voltage. I mean, I can help with that.
LTO.
Yeah, lithium. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
LTO versus lithium ferrite. That's basically what it is.
Yeah.
Longevity, life, what?
Speed. Speed, like recharge, discharge.
Okay.
Your
So,
recharge
so
rate
like
on
power density, basically you can have fast, or you can have so it'll be fast and not as much, like caps, or you can have slow.
Oh, I'm totally familiar with that.
And more. Right.
One of my customers, Tim Minton, came out to my shop and visited me like on a weekend, and he had the Vicium batteries. So with those cells, what I noticed was they took a lot longer to charge, which obviously indicated to me they've got more reserve than other lithiums. At least that's what I would assume, because it took me, I was charging them all off one alternator out of quads that he had. I only just had one alt hooked up, and I sort of like governed the alternator around 130 amps for almost an hour to charge a 200 amp hour bank. It seemed like an hour. And once they were fully charged, they did outstanding, man. These C-Max batteries, I was very impressed with them. But other people are saying that the way that the battery is designed, the life expectancy of it is going to be much less than other types of lithium.
4 years old too. That's more of the dilemma as far as I'm concerned with it. But they have excellent discharge rate, but it's at a higher voltage than most people will be able to charge at.
Time is going to tell on these.
Yeah.
So
they're going to last. I'm not concerned with them lasting. I just more along the lines of a lot of the DIY market sketches me out, just because a lot of these guys are putting together like packs that could have these crazy variances. And that's
pretty heavy, right?
Yeah, you see, he dropped it.
Oh, I was wondering why
do not use on it.
I was wondering why it was like super fast.
I really was about to ask you, what is it written on there?
So with Hank's batteries,
do not use.
I'm not going to say these have already been proven.
Okay.
Did you get that from Midwest SPL?
I'm not going to say these have already been proven, but they kind of have.
They are. They're proven batteries. Just
these
you have to be at a
these batteries came out of
Ford C-Max.
The shop that Soundcheck, I think the shop that Hank has always that owns that shop that's by Hank. I can't remember, but
Soundcheck Audio, whatever the heck it's called.
Yeah, exactly. So anyways, the batteries that had come out of his vehicle were sold to another guy, according to Tim, and he's still using them too. So, I mean, all I'm getting at is there's some age on them, and they're still working. You know what I mean? They haven't just dropped and failed out of nowhere. You know what I mean?
No. So. And again, but that's the thing. Hank knows what he's doing. So, at least to a point, like Hank knows how to build a pack. There's a lot of people that are building packs. They're buying like these like we use Yinlongs.
Don't you disrespect Yinlongs in this place of business.
Yeah, I run them.
Whatever their B stock is good enough for the community.
I pulled a Yinlong battery out of a little lithium flashlight my dad had. I was laughing my ass off. I was like, Yinlong!
Yeah,
throw it in the car.
Yeah, Limitless uses them in their 200 amp hour from what someone told me. But yeah, so that's neither here nor there. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is not necessarily the manufacturer, but like, okay, so you're talking about those B stock cells. The people that are putting them together that don't necessarily know what they're doing and not using like any form of balancing whatsoever, they're using a cell that one cell is at like 1.7 volts, the other cell is at like 2.2. They're making one series pack. And yeah, here they are right here. See, we're not disrespecting them. We have them right here. we have all of them. Like I have the black cells that like Sean Mayo has been working with, which is really similar to these. They work at a lower voltage set point. So technically it makes these look pretty outdated. But which I guess it kind of does, because those are like a year old. Have you seen those yet? Mm-hmm. I have them here somewhere. I'll grab one for you. These are like 4 volts, right? Like peak charger, like 16 2 is like the max you really want to be with these. The other ones the max you want to be at. The black ones I'm talking about. Then like the Honda ones, they'll be like around 15.2, which is like what most people charge at.
Yeah.
So it's more usable for a larger group of people.
Yeah.
Like
John,
like LTL. LTL is usable for a larger group of people than say the C-Max banks. That's why like Kevin Ross has been having really good luck with his My Solar batteries. Kevin Ross is super fucking smart. Like that dude's crazy smart. I talked to him at Slam for a couple of hours about the My Solars.
He will talk your ear off because he's passionate about it. I mean, that's his livelihood, and he's very smart. And I've said it many times that everybody that sells lithium or uses lithium right now owes him a debt of gratitude. But
you guys want to laugh at something? I have a Black Cherry Group 31 on my bench. That battery has been on my bench, I think, for 6 or 7 years. Around 6. I went to charge it the other day, and my charger floated in under 30 seconds. The alternators are maintaining the battery, obviously. And obviously, you're not running an alt on a bench long to test it other than to get it really hot for a certain amount of time, go through your regular, checks, make sure you don't have any shorts, all that stuff. But I still thought it was impressive that just the battery even sitting there, even though I'm using it almost every day.
Yeah, it's technically getting a
still
float.
good.
It's getting like a decent float, like 5 or 10 times a day. So
look, this brings me to my question, and I need look, one of y'all got to take it one at a time. I need the other one to plug their ears and like hum baseballing or something because I need yes,
can't stop my ball.
One at a time. I want independent answers. So one of y'all pick to hum baseball and one to answer the question. So somebody plug their ears.
I can just walk away. I'll let Mike go first.
Beat it. Very simple question. And you don't have to get into much detail. Do alternators charge batteries?
I knew it.
Oh, you dirty mother!
Hey, cheating!
You dirty son bitch! I knew he was listening.
Hey,
I'm glad you asked me first because you don't have to get the 4-hour Jonathan Patrick answer that everyone expected from me. I don't have to translate it. I can just immediately translate now. All right. Yeah. So, in my opinion, fact, they don't. The reality of this is an alternator can put current back into a battery from a pre-existing state that the battery is in. It can bring the battery back up to almost basically a full charge again, depending on the state you're starting with. That's why I always tell everybody, I got like a little disclaimer that I even send with the alternators now that says, this is the importance of charging your batteries, especially with slow charging when we're talking AGM. I won't get into any of that. But basically, slower charging is going to build up the memory of the battery better, over a longer period of time. So once the battery gets in a weak enough state, the alternator can basically no longer bring it back to a fully charged state because it's trying to send so much current in, it's just pretty much cooking the battery. So the reality of it is the alternator can assist and maintain, providing the pre-existing state of the battery isn't garbage. What were you going to say? The exact same thing?
Oh my God. That's why I wanted y'all to plug your ears. I hate
all right, so that's my translated version. Here's the Chinese one coming at you.
Both of you.
I'm going to say it's going to be substantially more complicated. So
why is he leaving? Why is Mike leaving now? You
go to the bathroom too.
He said to plug my ears.
Go get a beer, damn it.
Yeah. But okay, so as far as an alternator charging a battery, one, it depends on what kind of battery it is. So like,
hey, listen, just give us the short answer. Damn it.
No, I want the long answer.
No,
okay, you're gonna get the short answer. Yeah, Mike, you got, how long do we got? We got an hour for this?
I want diodes and shit.
Here we go.
All right, so So duty cycle is the issue when you're using alternator to charge batteries. When you, especially a high output alternator, let's say like a stock alternator, for instance, the rectifier, everything is super over engineered for what's happening there. For that case, like say you have to jump start your car, etc. It can do that, and it can do that pretty reliably. When you take a high output alternator, you're basically taking the exact same thing, but making it work 2 to sometimes 3, even 4 times harder than it was supposed to from the factory. So at some point, heat becomes a major factor there. And it's all about duty cycle. You're basically saying, okay, your stock alternator can do like 75 to 80% duty cycle, like consistently. Your high output alternator is more like 40, 50. You know what I mean? Like when you hit like you use an accessory, that accessory load isn't permanent, right? Like use an amplifier for instance. The load fluctuates. When you have a low battery, the alternator is stupid, right? The regulator is nowhere near smart enough to know, okay, the battery needs charge, so let's go slow. What it's trying to do is trying to reach a set point. If the battery is, let's say the battery, we'll use LTO for instance. I just posted a video of it. I tagged you guys in it earlier, but that battery was at 15.2, our 6S bank, and it was still It was still pulling 330 amps out of a 300 amp alternator, which I mean, so it's a 320, whatever the hell you want to call it. But so that's at 15.2 volts. So that's technically charged, right? It's because it's not fully topped off. It's still pulling 100% duty cycle from the alternator until it's full.
Why? Stop you there.
Again, the regulator is not smart enough to realize what's happening.
What is it seeing? What is it seeing? Why is it going? Why is it still wide open?
So let's say, okay, so we had the regulator set for 15.6, which was the top off for the most we want to charge the bank that we're working with. Because of that, the alternator is saying, okay, since I can't physically reach this voltage set point, give it all the amperage that it possibly can until we reach that set point or something horrible happens.
That's exactly what battery chargers do. Exactly.
Correct, but battery chargers do it. If you look at, say, like a NOCO or an Access Power smart charger, that's the way that it works. It doesn't do it, okay, here's 60 amps. It'll give it, you're talking about 60 amps, right? You're not talking about 300 amps.
Yeah, I understand that.
You're also talking about a larger heatsink and usually something that's technically like solid state, a little more complicated than say something that's just generating 300 amps for a consistent rate. A battery charger will ramp the voltage up to get the battery to be topped off. Like a Access Power smart charger will, the way like the program works, it'll ramp the voltage up. If you say it's like an AGM battery, like trying to rest like at 12.8, it'll ramp the voltage up to like 15.5 to try to like kind of overcharge the cells a little bit because it doesn't have the amperage to do it. Again, the alternator is not that smart. It doesn't have like a program for that. It just says, this is my set point. I need to reach this set point. And it'll do it until either something breaks or it does reach its set point. Once it reaches its set point, it's totally fine. So that's why a lot of guys, when they put their alternator in, we're really too worried about charging their batteries. Usually it's okay. But when you have that one guy who, okay, my rectifier melted down or my windings melted down because that's when you hear like, oh, you shouldn't charge your batteries with your alternator. Like I do it all the time. I do it here every day. But it's just I understand the limitations of it, and I will turn the voltage down on an adjustable regulator so it can act as that battery charger where it's kind of like regressive. Like Roth, we were doing that earlier. When he took it up to 15, it was 300 amps for 15 minutes.
Shout out Roth.
Slowly started ramping down.
Shout out to Roth. Get that man some camera time.
Yeah.
What the hell? Listen. Slamology's, I think, like 14 hours away from me. All right. Yeah. Let's say I bring my demo vehicle to Slam, and I demo all weekend, and I beat the friggin' snot out of my bats. Say I got AGM, whatever. Lithium, doesn't matter. Right? I just beat it up all weekend. My batteries are dying, tongues hanging out, and I shut my system down for the entire 14-hour trip back home. Are you saying my batteries will not be charged when I get home?
If it's an AGM bank, no. Technically, you should be at 80 to 90%. If you're working with lithium, you should be able to get to that maximum set point. As long as your voltage is at the point where the battery is, okay, at rest, we're going to be, like, if you charge a battery at 14.8, eventually it kind of falls back down to like whatever its resting point is. We use AGM for like 12.8 to 13, right? If you do that with any battery, technically, yes, you should be at 100%. But you're also talking about 14 hours. At 14 hours, it's a little bit different than say, okay, let me start it up and go for it. Like, start it up with my batteries at 40%, go for a drive.
Right.
If you're sitting there at idle, the alternator is only making 100 something amps, right? If you're doing it while you're driving, let's call it a 300 amp alternator, that's going to get really hot. If the bank doesn't get topped off to the point where the regulator is like, okay, because it'll progressively lower the amperage, right? As the voltage gets higher, which I'm sure you've seen before, you clamped before, etc. And that's that's totally fine. But if you have this giant battery bank with one 300 amp alternator, let's say that's generally what most people have issues with.
Yeah.
Like you have a CRX, right, or something like that. Okay, so you're kind of stuck with one alternator. If you have this giant battery bank, then if that battery bank gets to, like, again, say 50, 60%, that alternator is then trying to get that battery bank up to that 80 to 90%, which is about the most that it's really going to be able to get it to. Because if your set point's at 14.8, you're not hitting that 15.3, 15.5 like intermittently. That's going to take to get that last 10%. And like a lot of smart chargers will say, okay, the battery's fine. It'll only take like 30 seconds for it, maybe 5 minutes for it to actually get topped off, because it only really needs that 15.5, 15.6 for maybe a minute or two. And it doesn't really need that much amperage for it to happen. It's just so it'll rest at that full 12.8 to 12.9 instead of like 12.7, 12.8.
So let's agree on something. All right. Alternators do charge batteries, but it's a good idea to put them on a battery charger every once in a while.
But that's something that we've been saying for, like, Mike's been saying it for 10 years. I've been saying it for about 3 or 4.
Safe to say.
It's just, safe to say that that is a safe assumption. That is a good assumption. At no point in time have I ever said, no, don't ever do that. I agreed with like Travis when he said, oh no, it's fine as long as you have, like, if you have that 180 amp hour JY battery, and if you have like one 270 amp alternator, when you first start it up, they ship those batteries at like 30-40%ish. It's going to take you about 15-20 minutes at, say, 150 amps for that battery to finally get topped off.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you're sitting there at idle, you know what I mean? You're sitting there at idle while the alternator is just charging that battery up. And that's why, my alternator is getting real hot and my voltage sucks. I'm like, yeah, because the battery's not charged.
My stock Honda never got it topped off.
John talked about that's a good thing the other day was if you have a bigger alternator that actually makes less power at idle, for lithium setups, in some element, it's a good thing because it's the only thing that governs the alternator from cooking itself. Yeah. And obviously, because it can make more power at a higher RPM, if you're going to sit there with your foot on the gas and hold it at 2 grand, it's going to, it's going to try to make power, and you're going to end up cooking the thing probably if the batteries are low enough. But when I was charging John Gentry's JYs at his house, we had, I think, quad 320s on his setup, and basically with an external regulator, all I did, because his were so dead, just from
slowly ramp it up.
Yeah, from the vehicle sitting or something, I was able to slowly turn the voltage up with an external regulator. This is why an external is nice for lithium, because you can sort of govern the amount of amperage you see coming through if you have a clamp. Everyone should invest in one at some point, but you can monitor the amperage going, into your batteries and kind of sort of just slowly turn voltage up as you see amperage come down and voltage come up more. You can bring amperage back up to, fully charge the batteries. His JYs were charged in like 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. It was fast, man. And they were around like 12 or 13 volts. And it was, his 16 volt setup.
Yeah.
So when I'm comparing
nobody's doing that.
Too long, didn't read.
Nobody's doing that.
What's that?
Nobody's monitoring current and
no, not at all.
And that's what we're saying. That's what we're saying. Like with that video that I posted, I said, "Don't try this at home," like kind of like as a joke, but not dead serious.
I'm gonna cold start my shit and send it. Yeah. And me and John are throwing our hands in the air, like, well,
no, yeah,
that's how I roll, bro. That's how I roll.
It's not gonna break, but when it does, don't be mad at me.
But this is only in the instance of the batteries really being that low, or if they've got like a huge bank and they just put it in, because you have startup load and stuff too. I've seen vehicles on startup clamp more than 220 amps just from startup load, like for a quick second. And that's really if in the winter time and stuff, when your car is sitting, things like that, that's when the damage really gets done. They're the guys that might not even keep a tender on their batteries.
Roth, what happened when you switched to JY at first? What happened when you first started the Jeep up? It was fucking barely running. Because it was trying to charge. He has two 390 amp alternators on this little 4-liter Jeep motor that's got almost 300,000 miles on it. When he started it up, it was just like it's dieseling. Just the belt's walking. It's all over the place.
Here's a good one.
You have this. The alternator is just like, all right, we're going to be at 18 volts. That's what we're shooting for. And the alternator, it can't reach that set point because you're dumping in 390 amps into it until it reaches that set point.
Same thing.
I like that.
That's 40 horsepower ish.
Yeah.
I mean, that's on an engine that might make like 65, 70 horsepower at like 800, 900 RPM. I mean,
that actually brings me to one of my other questions is how efficient are alternators?
Not very.
So like
every 300 amps, 300 around a 5 horsepower draw.
Say what now?
Perfect basic figure.
if efficiency was like percent, which is not.
It's more.
I mean, it is
you're like 60 to 65% efficient with an alternator. It's just, I mean, again, you can't beat heat. That's something that's just not possible.
Yeah.
If something electrical, if something in general gets hot, it's generally not going to perform as well as it should.
Me.
Me. Yeah, me too. Yeah, I get hot. I want to take a nap.
I'm out of it. Yeah.
All right, so all right, do the math. Let's just say 300 amps, 14 volts. What is that? 4,200 watts, something like that.
Okay, so let's
like
call it
100% efficient. What's it gonna make? Like.
I mean, yeah, it's similar to the same kind of thing as anything else. I mean, you got diodes that's similar to a MOSFET. You know what I mean? Everything's usually between 65 and 75% efficient. That's in general rule with electrical.
Okay,
I mean, you can.
So 4,200 watts. What is that? 6 or 7 horsepower?
Correct.
So that's 100% efficient. What's it actually going to take? What's it actually going to take?
Okay, so that's how much it takes to generate that. You also have rotating mass. So say your rotor weighs a certain amount. Let's call it 7 pounds for like a large case Denso rotor, which is super common. You got to imagine that rotating mass on a certain pulley size, a pulley diameter, like math, like it continually gets higher to the point where my brain just
conversation.
Yeah, I mean,
me and John have this conversation because the guys, I might as well just talk about it. The guys running 4 and 5 groove belts on high amp alternators usually do want a rotor mass that's lower.
Yeah.
So the smaller case, 128.5 millimeter case, is a better solution to that.
That rotor weighs 4.5 pounds. So you're like 40% less.
To turn.
40% less weight. It's again, it's the same thing as like if you get lighter wheels in a race car. You know what I mean? You're gonna go faster because you have less.
There's some things you can do to alleviate the belt contact issues and rotor mass issues if you do have a 4-groove belt on a large case. I have done it. I am guilty of building some units like that. But when I do, I use usually a pulley that's bigger than 2 inches, so the belt is making more contact with more surface area on the pulley.
Instead of having width, you just have overall diameter.
And things like that obviously are going to help allow it to work correctly.
It's all about belt contact area. You switch to 8 groove. That was your answer. Most people aren't capable of doing that, so you just use a larger pulley.
Company called Innovators West. Matthew Young told me about them.
Yeah, they use the 10 rib
They make
swaps.
these badass crank pulleys, crank hubs for vehicles.
If anything,
you have
someone needs to put a link
5.3,
on there so someone can.
You can get like a 10 groove serpentine crank pulley that's 25% overdrive. So if you have something like that, you want to run quads or 6 alts and just never have to look at it again, you could run 2-inch pulleys on a 25% overdrive and never have to worry about belt contact again.
And have more output than you would with a 1.7-inch pulley on a.
And still have more output.
Less belt slip. Belt slip's a problem. Generally, that's like usually your biggest issue is you see people under load, especially with lithium now. People first start their car, they have all these passive balancers. They all bring the battery down to like 60, 70%. So when you first start the car up, you're now bringing the battery back up, which gets to your point again, Taylor, where you're saying all batteries do or alternators do charge batteries. Yes, they do, but at some certain load cycle, percentage-wise, it's unsafe for the rectifier.
There's always the guy on the shit starter threads like Terrence McFadden. I'm gonna mention him. I hope he's watching. Yeah. He'll post a picture of an alternator and it'll be like, this is not a battery charger, and then the internet explodes.
Yeah.
So it's always cool to watch that.
Shit like that.
I like it.
I like the I watched that EXO video. It was for the layman's terms to alternator stuff, but he posted the video just this week maybe of him starting his car and he clamped it with a whatever they.
What, the charges bank up?
Yeah. And it was pretty cool. And I was watch the amperage like go slowly down as the voltage went up or whatever. That was interesting.
The closer it gets to its set point, the less amperage it has to maintain to reach its set point.
Right. This is probably a shitty analogy, but if you know how to do reactive load tests, this is more for Taylor. But if you do reactive load tests, you notice the closer you get to the RE to your frequency, to your FS, the less current the speaker needs to produce a louder score. So people, people talk about reactive load all the time, and they throw that around in car audio. But the reality of it is a high reactive is a good thing. So in relation to what we're talking about, well, as the alternator makes less current, voltage comes up. So that's how you know that the battery is in a better state, so the alternator isn't having to work as hard. That's the best.
And again, that's when the duty cycle goes down. The higher the voltage is, the less the duty cycle, right? So if the battery is at a certain state of rest, you're at, say, 30% duty cycle. And that's when you'll see, the alternator at 2,000 RPM is only making, so your 300 amp alternator is supposed to make 300 amps at 2,000 RPM. It's only making like 60. Why is that? And that's why. Basically, he broke it down in a way that I don't understand. So,
well, in car audio, it's
I understand.
Inversely proportional things. That's kind of the way I was trying to explain it, but it's not related to
right. Well, the more it's simply stated, the more a battery is charged, the higher the resistance it has, right, and the less current it's going to take. So the less it's going to draw.
You're comparing it to a speaker, yes, like a coil.
Right. Yeah, that's right. So like a really high charge, like a battery that's charged is like, say, 8 ohms or whatever, right? It's not going to take a whole lot. But a battery that is dead is like, a quarter ohm. It's going to like draw all the currents.
When people basically say there's
and that's that's basically in a nutshell how chargers and or alternators, I'm assuming, work. It sees resistance and it shoves as much as it can in there. I mean, depending on smart chargers and or however the voodoo y'all build works. I know
some people use caps to clamp alternators because they don't have their own load banks. I know Daniel Martin did it a long time ago, but he used dead caps to clamp an alternator to do a clamp test video because, initially when the caps are charging, they're basically they're forcing the alternator to run almost wide open.
Yes.
So it's one way to do it. It's just like a battery being dead, similar.
Yeah, I did a video, a single bank of caps versus Group 31s like 3 or 4 years ago. And I made a note to clamp the chart because I had it on like a shop charger, like a 40 amp shop charger. And I made a note to clamp the recharge rate, and it was like 10 for the batteries, but it was like wide open for the caps because it was, just less resistance.
It's resistance.
And
you got it.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's right. It was faster, but it came up faster. But I was like, this is, quote unquote, side note, this is why caps are harder on your alternator.
Yeah, definitely.
The faster shit leaves, the faster it's going to get put back, and that's why it's harder on your alternator.
Exactly.
Blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
See, so you understand it. Why are you asking?
Makes the engine bog down.
Hey, I'm asking for the people. Hey, some people in the comments are asking if y'all can see the comments. Are y'all watching them?
I was looking at some of them.
I just looked for a second. I was just making sure that no one was like, no, I didn't have like a bug hanging or something like that.
Earlier with horsepower draw, like engine drag torque conversions. Kyle Smith had his JYs on the 4.8 motor, GM, and he was actually telling me on the phone one day that with 4.270s, he couldn't even take off from a stoplight, like almost flooring it, like pedal to the floor.
That's crazy.
Vehicle wouldn't move.
I got to tell you, I used to have, a CRX HF, and I had the factory motor, which made 62 at the crank, which means like about 40 horse, to the wheels. And I had a 300 amp on that thing and a 3-rib pulley.
I got guys that do it.
Oh my god!
You want to talk about guys in Florida that do it? They know who they are. They kick belts in their glove box.
Yeah,
they take them to World Finals.
Dude, multiple.
They get about 4 to 6 months out of them.
Yeah,
I love it. That was so much fun.
A little belt dressing on there, it'd be fine.
Yeah, that's what.
Dude, I wasn't worried about belt. I just keep belt dressing on there.
Yeah.
Shit.
Oh yeah, that's the answer. Yeah.
Get some
shit all over it. There you go.
Get some adhesive.
Hey, how the crap? I mean, I understand professional courtesy and professional respect and stuff, but how the crap do y'all get along? Yeah, I mean, like y'all sell different alternators.
Dude, you didn't read the post? Mike gets his alt from
We have
CES.
conversations about that. I just told John this when I came here. I did like a consensus study on my customers, my repeat business, and John's customers. And it was like under, I think, 8% of my customers have any crossover to John, if that makes any sense. I almost never get any of John's products, and he rarely gets any of mine, even with me doing alternators for over 10 years. But the thing is
it's a customer service factor is what it is.
Yeah, that's
are y'all buddies?
Customer service sucks. We're probably gonna have a problem with you.
Yeah.
If your customer service is good, like if one of Mike's customers has an issue with something, he's gonna bend over backwards to make it right, even if it's 5 years later. Same thing with me. If I have customers that have issues with the first alternators that we sold, like even before I started working here, like 5-6 years ago, they come in or they need something or they call the shop. We're gonna help you no matter what, and as long as you listen and we can figure out what happened and how something broke. We're gonna be on good terms, and that's Mike has a similar kind of attitude as far as customer service goes. And you have a lot of companies out there that don't really have that attitude. That just kind of try to. The latest thing that Mike and I say it all the time: we don't want to play the blame game. That's like the last thing we ever want to do if something ever breaks. That's not really the goal, right? It has a lifetime warranty. It's gonna get fixed.
Who's got a lifetime warranty?
Huh?
Who has a lifetime warranty?
We both do a lifetime warranty on labor, as far as I know.
No shit.
Yeah.
As far as
that was an Iraqi.
Y'all
trying to copy?
What?
I thought that was an Iraqi.
You really just back up for a second. I'm not trying to be an asshole.
No, I know. Well, when we talk over each other, the audio.
No, your internet sucks.
I think
my
internet sucks. Yeah.
I'm not going to get into any of that stuff, but I think that the reality of this, you guys, is these guys, if they see the money leaving their pocket every day that own other companies, they get all their panties in a wad about it. But the reality of it is it happens every day and they don't know about it. So when they can actually respect their competitors, then they'll do better.
Yeah.
That's really the mindset that other brands should be at. And, everybody is in
like your buddy, Taylor.
The blame game or, the trash game. And, it's like,
bang,
just
bang,
resolve
bang,
the issue.
It's just a joke.
No, all the drama.
End the stream now.
I hear you. No, I get it. And I can appreciate that. And it's awesome. I love the professional courtesy. I actually reached out to someone today and they were going to help me sell somebody else's product. And I think that's awesome. But how do y'all reconcile if someone needs an alternator and like, who do they go to?
If he buys it from him, it's no skin off my bones. If he buys it from me, it's no skin off his bones.
Pretty much same for where I stand.
Yeah.
The reality of this too is there are certain vehicles that John's prolific at building alternators for, and there are certain vehicles that I'm good at. And John will sometimes forward those sales to me, and I'll forward sales to him.
Okay.
If there's certain like older applications. John knows conversions I don't know. I know conversions he doesn't know. So like, everybody has proprietary knowledge too, is what you got to consider.
We tell each other a lot of stuff. There's certain stuff we don't share.
Sure.
Yeah, and I'm sure.
Like if you need an alternator for a 62 Corvair, he's probably not he's gonna say, okay, call John.
Pretty much.
If you need something for a BMW, I'm probably just gonna hang up on you. Right after I say call Singer alternators.
Right.
But yeah, no, that's just like BMW, Mercedes, a lot of like real crazy like computer applications. I don't really like to mess with just because there's so many sensors and modules, et cetera, that gets really complicated once you start doing all that stuff. At my price point, and this is what it really comes down to, like we're like kind of like the more budget-oriented brand. The reason why we're able to sell our alternators at a certain price more so is that I sell a lot of common stuff, right? Like Tahoes, Blazers, your GM alternators. You'll see a lot of GM vehicles running our product. You'll see a lot of like weird billet stuff that you never even knew you could get an alternator for from this guy. So it's just, but again, that's going to be at a higher price point. But because of that, his customer service, since he doesn't sell quite as many units as we do, we don't need to get into like specifics. His customer service level can be that much better, just because
that's what it is. Like I'm a mom and pop shop that people like prefer to deal with sometimes and always come back to. And John is the customer that wants an alternator who doesn't give three shits who Mike Singer is or doesn't know Mike Singer, if that makes any sense. So that's really the reality of it. And I mean, that's fine with me. Again, I completely respect the competition. So, that's that. I mean, we don't have a problem with each other.
Yeah, I don't really consider it competition when we do forward each other's sales. When that does happen, I'll just crush them. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds.
When John surfaced, I did want to mention this to you guys. It was kind of a proud moment for my brand. Is even to this day, this year, the company is no longer under exponential growth, but the company this year is still growing. So it proves
sales
that
are going up, not down.
It proves that even if you have an industry more saturated with more companies and more competitors, that you can still succeed by always improving and always innovating,
offering new product lines.
We both do that.
Like when we came out, every time I notice sales starting to get kind of like flat, I'm like, okay, it's time to make something new. That's basically the gist of it. Like people wanted more idle output out of a product. So we came out with, we basically take what's in a semi-truck. Denso makes an alternator for a semi-truck. We basically just made that and said, okay, let's just make that fit in a car. It's everything's basically the same. It's just a little bigger, a little thicker. It's basically the Stator lamination stack is actually the only difference is the Stator lamination stack is 4 millimeters thicker and a half a millimeter wider. Half a millimeter isn't very much. The 4 millimeter thickness does make a difference. So we can manufacture frames where it will actually just slot together and just bolt right on your Tahoe and you're done. So like there's customers that have say 2 or 3 of them, but it does come with its own limitation though, because again, we're working with more rotating mass then. You're working with, like another 8 to 10% more rotating mass, and you're working with more, just because you have a larger wheel draw at idle, it's more horsepower draw. So that's when we get to the stalling and the bogging, where you can't necessarily run them in strings.
Yeah, we were talking about this. You actually reach a certain point with that platform. The
most popular platform, like the 5.3, the 6.0.
That platform makes so much power and certain vehicles that the vehicle can't even hold onto the belt, at low enough idle. Some of the builds that we used to do, like even Kevin Harvey's Yukon, when we had quads on it, it sounded like the engine was actually knocking under load because basically the vehicle was almost stalling out. Because it idled at 550, 600 RPMs. So we just got a Diablo tuner, set the idle as high as we could put it, like 1100.
Like the torque converter wanted to throw you forward.
Yeah, when you put it in gear.
Yeah, and it tries to walk when you
launched it.
Yeah, exactly.
Neutral bombed it.
It was okay. It was all right. It wasn't
so
like
you guys have brought up rotating mass or rotating assembly weight several times now. What are the trade-offs there?
So the more rotating mass you have, generally the larger the stator and the larger the stator and the rotor is going to be. The trade-off to that is that yes, you will have more amperage at idle. But the negative side effect of it is that you are going to have more draw on the engine at that particular RPM, which is generally the issue is idle. Like you'll see guys like Hunter Martin's a great example. I know you guys know who. Oh, I know you guys do because you guys had him on your.
Who's that? I don't know that.
His Sonoma, for instance, he'll be cruising around at say 2,600 RPM, 3,000 RPM. He'll hit a base note with all 3 alts on, and the truck will basically. And he has large case units. So again, that's what we're talking about. That 35 to 40% difference from say a small case unit, like say you have in your CRX. The difference there is pretty substantial when you stack them up 3 times. So he has 3 of them compared to say 3 small cases. You're looking at 12 pounds difference on just the crank pulley itself. I think Hunter actually lost a harmonic balancer while he was driving to Slam or something like that last year. Year.
He just commented.
He
said hi.
Y'all internet went out.
And I was trying to explain, I was just at Ruckus and Chill Show in North Carolina last month. There was a great example because he can only run 2 if he wants to play at idle or play at 1,800 RPM, etc. And another great example is his draw so far outweighs his generation that his alternators will make 190, 200 amps. I mean, he had his alternators at Ruckus up at, I want to say it was 390, 410 degrees, pretty much for the entire show. They were making.
Is that a lot?
Yeah, it's pretty hot. Yeah.
Guy with the VTMs earlier, I was trying to think of is RP. If you guys know him, RP Patel.
RP Patel. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Really nice guy. What's up? If you're watching,
He's a loud mofo. Loudness.
Yeah, and and Roth, you have that problem too.
Yeah,
You're
where
driving
did
on the
Driving
highway,
up the
it's
freeway walk, and it's literally
it's like an engine brake.
yeah, it's literally like your car hit limp mode. Like,
Yeah. I mean, you'll go from like 75 to 60.
Yeah.
Like
my Eclipse did it actually when I was a kid. I was driving and the bass from the bass from the system was shaking relays and shit and stuff with my vehicle's computer.
all right, the Eclipse wasn't that loud.
that
Okay, let's.
it literally just made the car randomly start hitting limp mode, and what it actually ended up being was like a bad relay in the car. I got rid of the car to my ex-girlfriend. She took it to a mechanic and finally found the problem after I wrestled with it for like a year and just said, fuck it, get rid of it. I don't want the car anymore.
I remember that one video you burped it and the car just shut off.
Yeah, that's a good representation of engine drag torque that we were talking about. But I didn't have any big 3 connections on that alternator. It was a 160 amp like Eagle Auto, which is, just another alternator brand I put on it, before I was obviously building alternators. And it just shut the car off. It was about 8K RMS. I think I remember clamping something like that.
So here's a really good question. What is more reliable, an OEM alternator or one of yours?
Well, no matter what, a high output alternator is going to be able to make more power if you're pulling the power. So you're going to have the most reliability from a factory alternator since it's going to govern itself.
That's where I was talking about duty cycle before. Again, you can be at a higher duty cycle with a stock alternator because generally just because it's making less amperage. Your duty cycle, the way that the curve works is totally different when you have a high output alternator because, like, say, okay, here's my 60 amp curve, right? Let's say your alternator makes 60 amps. We're just going to use that as a reference. Your stock alternator, and there's your curve. 100% is 60 amps. Now your curve moves from, let's say, make it up to 180 amps. Here's your 100%, but the maximum your alternator really should be making under like normal vehicle load is that 60 amps. So that's like, between give or take, like say 40 amps up and down is about the most you should really see in a consistent basis of the alternator generating, unless it's under like extreme duress, like say your amps or a winch or whatever your accessory draw is, or low batteries, like if you're charging batteries. It's like using that as an example. But yeah, I mean, generally, yes, an OEM alternator should always be more durable than, and to an extent, like say you have like a
why can't you make a high output alternator as durable or reliable?
We do. We both make 270 amp large cases. That's 270 amp large case Denzos. You can use those with like 100 amp diodes. Both of us have been doing that for years. I've maybe had 2 of those fail out of 2,200, 2,300 units. It's just when people want to get to that like 370, 390 amp range, that's when we talk about that duty cycle range again.
Do you try to talk them out of it?
Of course, every time.
And they never listen.
To run 2 270s versus 1 370, I'll try my damnedest to do it. And if anything, sometimes I'll like Jimmy Zakuska. He's a guy who makes brackets. I've like given people brackets from him in an effort to get them to stay away from that aspect. Like I've had customers with this. We won't throw any names in there, but like a competitor's alternator that's like, oh, I have this 400 amp alternator from this competitor. It keeps breaking. I'm like, okay, what are you running? They like playing at idle, pulling it down, and going for a drive down the road. So you're only making like say 190 amps. The second you go drive down the road, you're making 390 while you're trying to bring that bank back up. You have a greater chance for failure with the higher output you go.
The best explanation is with an alternator that produces more power at idle for the way that the car audio user needs the alternator, like for what they're using it for, city driving, stopped in park demoing, all of those conditions, they're going to get more power from a cheaper alternator that produces better idle no matter what. I mean, unless I always ask them, do you raise RPM when you demo?
Yeah.
So, if they're one of those guys that, has throttle control or they just want to sit there with their foot on the gas, some of the vehicles are so loud. Like Kevin's truck was so loud that we had to get that tuner. The gas pedal was going like this, and it was flapping against my foot. I couldn't even, when I was playing the system, I couldn't even pay attention to the gauges if they worked. You know, it was pointless.
I had a piece of plastic shim for my alternator in the CRX, and one side was USAC and the other side was Iasca, because one was 1,200 RPM and one was 2,000.
Yeah, the RPM limitations for those same things.
Yeah, I stuffed it under the hood and I could do the thing in the thing.
Definitely, man. We used to do the same thing. Ed Gardner, he passed away, but you know, when he used to do base race runs and stuff,
remember that video?
He used to use a nickel. You remember that?
I used to love that video, dude. Him playing Air Force's base racing, dude. Ed Gardner, who's that?
A prolific base race competitor around like 2006. And what's crazy when I look back at it, man, being 12 years ago now, my first World Finals was 05 when I saw Tommy McKinney still like running MA audio. And I think Nick from Incriminator was still with him then. But anyways, Gardner was definitely a really good dude. Got me into, you know, car audio, got me into bass race, all that stuff, man.
That was more. There's
I was about to say, there's a whole other case.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Roth. It's Roth.
John,
never forget.
The longer they talk, the drunker they'll get. You know, you'll get shorter explanations. It'll make more sense now.
You're welcome, guys. John, thank Bud Light for that. John totally told me.
Yeah, we're looking for a sponsorship from Bud Light. So.
Yeah, no, that's why he's here. In case I start just going off, just slap me.
Roth, where you going, man?
I was trying to find a shovel when he was talking, like he was just shoveling information down.
Roth, where you going? Tell us something. Give us something. Yeah, give us something.
Tell us about your build.
Something.
Mine?
Yeah.
Quiet. Yeah, it's quiet.
It's quiet. All right.
Yeah.
Beat it.
62, 63. Not as loud as the truck at 20. What it do at 20 though?
Do a demo.
Truck at 20.
Do a demo.
Skip.
Are either of you guys going to the CES Showdown?
I don't know what that is.
Man,
no Steve Barber show in Vegas.
I went a couple of years ago. I just don't know if I can make it back out there this year.
You should definitely do it this year.
But I can't get Skip out of the state of Louisiana.
Mm-hmm. Can't get me out
2019. That's our year, though. That's
can't
our
get me
year.
out of New Orleans, bro.
It's in 2019. It's gonna be great to get him out of the state.
I know.
Go him some places.
Skip, what alternator do you have?
I have a singer. I had that for a while. Yeah.
You have a ginger filtinator?
Yeah.
Yeah, you remember when the stickers looked like that? It was
I can't.
In the A.
Do they not look like that anymore? Do they not look like that anymore?
Not for a long time, man. I fixed it as soon as I heard it like 100 times. I'm like, all right, I gotta fix this.
We need to remake those. I have a vinyl cutter.
Please.
So,
ginger filters, huh?
John Bainham made me a knife from his girlfriend's or his wife's company she works at, Cutco, that says ginger filtnators.
Yes.
I still use it every day.
I'm gonna make one tonight. I might make one tonight.
Oh my god. I will not accept a sticker unless it says ginger filtinator.
Ben Carnes, he actually wrote it out in a different font, and it said like "fuck you, ginger filtrators" or something.
Oh man,
where do y'all see alternators going with? I mean, I know it hasn't been it's been around a long time, computer controlled, but I mean, it seems like it's getting more restrictive. The newer cars that come out, you know, like you can't f with them.
Shameless plug: we have an RVC controller for GM vehicles. That's pulse width modulation. So we basically just control the PWM signal going into the regulator to make the voltage go up or down, however you want it.
Dude, do y'all remember? Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Do you remember that MLA thing, the missing link audio? You remember that guy?
That thing basically just it took the signal input and said, "I don't really care what you're giving me," and it gave the regulator something anyway. It was super durable. I mean, I have customers that have had those things for years.
That's cool.
Steve Mead was the plug on those when we were around.
Right. But yeah. So now it's just you're gonna have to have something else that controls voltage on it, huh? Or it'll stay at 13.
That's the important thing is now that it's so much more complicated that you can't just throw it some signal and say, okay, this is how we want it to charge.
Mm-hmm.
Like the LIN system is genuinely just through the CAN bus of the car, like everything else now.
Yeah.
It controls it affects the remote start. It affects Like when we bypassed like certain Hyundais. Mike and I talked about this just a little bit ago.
Those Hyundais, man,
Yeah, the remote start won't
confusing.
work anymore. The car won't start.
They got push starts and stuff.
If you change the alternator, if you change the regulator control at all, in some Hyundais, the car just won't start anymore. It needs some kind of, everything has some kind of feedback because it uses the fact of the RPM signal from the regulator of the alternator to say like the stop start feature. For Hyundais, it actually, if they have that blue tech crap, it'll actually shut the car off when you're stopped at a stoplight. So we try to bypass that, obviously. The second we try to bypass it, the car just doesn't run anymore. So that didn't work out so hot.
Some comments said, Roth, you have to chug a beer right now. Go.
Why me?
I mean,
You're the star.
He's drink beer.
You're the
I
star.
don't control the comments.
There
you go.
it is.
Everybody.
Chug.
There you go. I like Roth. He's my favorite.
Yeah. He's gonna have a solo show after this.
Yeah, for real.
Probably.
You get these clowns off of here.
Yeah.
All right, who wants to field the next question?
Oh, Jesus.
Raise your hand. Actually, no, let's start with Mike. He gives the short answers. I need the Cliff's notes on this one.
Sorry.
All right. Y'all ready? Y'all ready for this one?
I want to play.
Yep. Shoot.
Let me. Hey.
Hairpin.
Oh,
Go.
I don't know.
Denzo.
Don't say Denzo. Don't
Oh,
say
I'm
Denzo.
still grappling. Hold on.
He's like, screw
The name
this.
actually fit because basically it's a bunch of pins that are TIG welded together the way that the Stator is actually manufactured in the alt. But the design is basically just everything on a tighter tolerance. So I'll break it down no different than one of the other companies' pages has it. MechMan has a page on their website too that actually gives you a full explanation. A higher pole count on the rotor. So obviously everything inside the alternator is doubled up. So you have 12 diodes, instead of 6. So 2 hots, 2 neutrals, 2 grounds, all that. So basically, in short,
Hairpin.
the design
It looks like it.
Just
You need another one
more
that's.
innovative.
Let me see the regular one. You got to put them next side by
You
side.
want to see a slap wound. So here's
We got
your
one of those
slap
too.
wound right here.
So like here, see how it's actually, I don't know if you can see it in the video or not, but see how there's actually slots drilled in to the lamination stack. This is basically just a bunch of steel segments all stacked on top of each other, which is exactly what this is, just substantially finer. See, you can't see the actual lamination.
Oh, it's
That's
definitely
pretty.
prettier.
That's pretty.
Yeah.
Can I get a caseless alternator?
So this is our power edge. This is what I was talking about. So like your standard. This is basically 2 stators stacked on top of each other. That's what we're talking about where we get to like the rotating mass, fuel generation, etc. At idle, especially. But the reason why they call it a hairpin, it's actually a rebuilder's term. It's not actually what Denso calls it. Denso calls it segment conductor.
Oh, fuck yeah.
So basically, why they call it that is because it's individual segments, versus say this is a phase. You have one phase here.
Those are the same 2 parts.
Yes, these are both stators. This is just older, like Delco style. This is actually out of a DR44. Ohio Generators uses it. We use it. Singer uses it. It's all everyone uses this. This is more a little bit more not proprietary, but something that we're a little bit ahead of everybody on as far as that. Like
That one is way sexier.
Yeah, right. Buy one.
I mean, I don't know if it performs any better. It just looks way better.
Yeah, it does perform better just because it's more efficient because you can fit more conductor in the same amount of space.
What's better about it? What does it do better?
This is 144 millimeters in diameter. This makes this is a 300 amp. This is a 300 amp stator. This is 100, and so the rotor obviously is going to weigh more because that you have your air gap in between your rotor and your stator is like a little, like I think it's 0.2 to 0.6 millimeter. So pretty
What's it do
small.
better, man? What's it do better?
Okay, I'm getting to it. This is 138
More
millimeters.
power.
So it's 6 millimeters smaller. So the rotor itself is going to be lighter. So you have,
So the gap is smaller?
mass. And everything about it is smaller, yes. But you actually have more conductor in this smaller space than you do here.
More BL.
Yeah, sure.
We're talking to an audio guy, man.
Nerd talk.
That's why we get along.
Yeah, exactly. So again, you're more concerned with how much conductor you can fit in the same amount of space. So this is going to be. I know that like guys like Dominic and Tom, they say that it's not actually more efficient in terms of heat. No, it's not. Everything's going to get to a certain temperature. That's not really what we're getting at. What we're getting at is you're getting the exact same output, but more at idle out of this than you do out of this, which is larger, fatter, heavier, more belt. People have more belt slip issues with these. Less, you have more. Yeah, everything about this is less efficient, except for again heat. If it gets to 300 degrees, it's at 300 degrees. I don't care what the hell it is.
Tyler, look at these hands. 2 magic words. Surface area. That's really
rotor surface area.
What he's getting at is surface area from all that. So,
if you can fit more conductor in a smaller space, you have the same or more effective surface area for field generation, which is that magnet. Basically, what you have is an electromagnet inside something that's connected to a coil. It's the opposite of a motor. I don't know how to explain. I'm trying to figure out a way to explain it in a way.
You don't have to.
Yeah,
don't worry about
it. I'll let it go.
Next topic.
No, we're good. So hairpin, I actually. Did we get to what's better about it?
It's because it looks like a hairpin. That's it.
No. Like, does it do more at idle? Is it more efficient? Does it do more power overall? More power in a smaller case?
You generate the same. Everything. You generate the same power or more with a smaller case
and better component options.
You have more regulator options, etc. Denso themselves have basically built these alternators like Legos, where like just about anyone. You may not be able to build the stator, but you can. Almost anyone can repair them. So you have a regulator issue. It's 4 screws and a small solder connection.
It's easy to change one yourself, but I mean, no matter what, we're still gonna. If you have a problem or something, we're still gonna want it back to test it and make
diagnose
sure
the issue.
Make sure
everything's working. Figure out why it broke. That's always the important part.
Yeah.
How close are y'all to Ohio Generator?
45 minutes.
45 minutes to an hour.
He's
they're near Akron, I think.
What's the monopoly with Ohio and alternators?
Yeah, I know. That's what I was getting at.
Y'all growing stators up there? What's the monopoly with Ohio and alternator companies, bro?
What's with Ohio and loud people? I mean, Nick.
Yeah.
You know,
none of y'all are loud.
Wait, are there loud people in Ohio?
Right?
There's more than 3 people in Ohio.
Yes. Are there loud people in Ohio?
Yeah. Maybe not anymore, but back in like when me and Brett were talking like 06, like 07, that whole community, it's you got a whole decade that you got a new generation. It's a new generation of bass heads. People that buy alternators from me now, like they don't even know who I am anymore. It's the weirdest thing. These younger kids are like, they'll make the connection and they'll be like, dude, like that's your car on YouTube I've been watching? No way.
Yeah.
And I'm
honestly
to me now, but
they don't.
A lot of disrespect, but it used to be Ohio Generator and Singer. Like those were the ones to go to.
Right. Kind of like
and now like we kind of shifted.
Definitely. Industry's changed a lot, man.
Social media.
That was, I mean, we're talking 6, 7, 8 years ago, if anyone asked about an alternator, of course, this was on the forums. I mean, they would send you to Singer every time. But now social media, I mean, we have all these fly-by-night companies. Who knows who they're going to tell you? I mean, CES is a new hotness. Last year it was US alts.
70, bud. Okay.
I'm just saying. Last year it was US alts. Yeah. Last year it was US alts. This year it's CES. I mean, Singer's always been around.
Dude, you remember? I was talking to Singer earlier before the show. Remember DC Power? They were huge at one time.
DC Power is still, like I said, I think they do a lot of contract work. That's all I really know about them. The company, I believe, is under new ownership. That's it.
That's more along the lines of why Custom Electric was never really into audio per se, is because that's our main business. Is like our local municipalities. We have the city of Cleveland. We have like basically our tri-state area all runs our alternators. we have car dealerships that run our alternators. We have car dealerships that run our PWM controllers, like plow trucks. You buy a brand new truck that's like a 2018, and you're talking about how the PCM control Brett was talking about earlier. They'll try to use a plow truck when the truck's charging at like 12.8 volts. They'll hit their plow, the truck just shuts off. That's obviously not beneficial to someone who just spent $80,000 on a new plow truck. They buy our PWM controller for like $225. It fixes their issue.
We don't know what plow trucks are down here.
Okay. Yeah, that sucks.
For you.
I'm not quite sure that's the thing that sucks.
Yeah, no, it sucks. That's like
We've never seen a
contract work isn't something that I really do, you guys, because I'm not gonna sit in my shop and build the same alternator 200 times over. The stuff I tell people now at this point, because I have like a personal machinist that works with the company who's attached to Singer, who's been with me pretty much within 6 months of day one, Mike Rosano. He basically will make anything from something that isn't a hairpin. So we get into doing a lot of, 6-phase conversions on alternators that just don't have it, like old Proteges and 626s we'll even do, and really weird stuff. So we'll go as far as
Joe Price said. Yes, my lithiums charge my alts as well.
We'll go as far as, slotting the drive, slotting the stator, making rear mounting, all this extra work. I'll even take orders on alternators I've never made if they want to pay for all our setup costs and custom building the hairpin version, and we'll do it. And then, we permanently have a platform for that application then from there. And, that first order goes into those setup costs to make it over and over again. So I'm kind of like the company that will build stuff that no one else wants to make a lot of times.
Denso.
So
yeah.
So what's 10 years ago? What's better about alternators today? Just the parts, and who's making them? Denso's.
Component options. These stators right here, John's showing you. Like, there's a couple of different versions of this type of stator now that just offer really killer idle power, insane low idle power, like 240 to 260 amp idles at like 600 RPM, on a standard pulley ratio. So, like,
You don't want to see that.
component options and just innovations on all of this. Innovations on all the hairpin style alternators, the triple wound Mitsubishi.
It's all very modest stuff.
Who's doing the innovations? Who's doing the R&D and on new alternator tech or whatever?
The companies themselves that are OEMing for various motor companies.
The OEM, Denso, Mitsubishi, etc. They're the ones. What we do is we make that new technology fit in your older vehicle. That's more along the lines of what we do. Just because, so you don't have to make a bracket or something.
Conversions.
We'll manufacture a frame, or we'll manufacture a kit for bolt-on, a kit to make it communicate with your factory car so you don't have a battery light, or make it do all, again, not start like we were talking about with the Hyundai. That's a problem, right? And there's no point in having a 400 amp alternator in your car if it doesn't start in the morning.
To put it in better perspective, hairpin technology was not really incorporated into being used often until after 2003. That's when they actually, paid for the patent and everything on it.
So what are they trying to get better in OEM? Just more efficient, more. I mean, they don't need more amps, right?
They do. That's actually the issue. Is that okay? So say your 1982 Pinto that did not need 300 amps to run anything.
Right.
Now you have your new Ram. Your new Dodge Ram, those actually have a 300 amp alternator on them from the factory.
Wow.
But this bitch is like this big. You know what I mean? Like, in a literal sense, I wish. Hold on one second. I'll actually go grab one.
That's insane. I was just gonna ask that. I remember back. I guess we're talking like Ed Gardner days. Like, you used to have to find like a Ford ambulance alternator or something, and that would be your high output alternator.
Yeah. If you remember those units, they were OEM'd by Lease Neville. And that alternator was really badass at idle, but I would still consider it kind of something of the past now at this point, because there's a lot of other platforms that have surpassed it in performance. It serves its purpose. It's good for what it is, but like old 3G alternators, 6Gs, stuff like that, it's not even worth building them, especially when there's a conversion to a hairpin alternator that's probably going to cost the same or less. So, like, the reality of it is it's better to ditch some of the old conventional slot wound stuff.
Is that still a thing? Like, I remember, that was old tech too. Sending in your alternator to get rewound. Is that a thing too? What?
What's that?
Is that a thing still? Like, I remember in the old days, you used to take your alternator off and go get it rewound. Is that still a thing?
That's slot wound alternators that, like this one that we had showed you. Like, basically, you know, that's when you would just go to your local rebuilder and they just change the stator. They don't put a better HD regulator in it. They don't put a better rectifier in it. You know, it's literally just a high amp stator. They say a prayer and, you know, you hope it lasts.
Send it.
So, yeah, so people, you know, might
Roth.
assume that high output alternator companies are doing the same thing when they're really not. You know, you're obviously getting what you pay for.
And again, so Brett, back to, sorry, I'm a little late on that, but to your question, the reason why, like, this, what's driving this innovation, okay, this alternator is what came off of, say, like a 90s truck.
Mm-hmm.
See how huge it is? It's got a big-ass fan
on it. It's like 80 amp, huh? It's like 80 amp.
This is what used to be a high-output alternator.
Yeah,
this is what you're talking about, like a rewound unit. It's pretty big. You put that next to, say, like what we offer now, this is 200 amps. This is 320 amps. As far as size difference, it's pretty substantial.
That's
you
crazy.
can fit this in just about anything.
Yeah.
Like, we can change frames options, etc. Yeah, that's what she said. Yeah, you have more options.
Leave it up to Roth.
Yeah, to drop the.
Let's swap.
That's why we need Roth here for the dirty jokes.
For the humor, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what's driving that innovation. That's why the manufacturers are constantly making things better. Like, if you have, again, go back to the Dodge Ram. The new Dodge Rams have this touchscreen that's, 13 inches tall. It's a 13-inch screen. It has heated and cooled seats. It has blower motors in the seat that draw 10 amps apiece. The more accessory load that you have, the more generation you have to have from the factory. So that's why basically what we're doing is what we're offering is a retrofit to fit this newest stuff in your older vehicle that you're most likely using for audio.
Yeah, like 90s vehicles all usually have these really kind of like cookie cutter similar alternators, and we're converting Hairpin styles to be able to fit in place of them on all those older applications as much as we can. Isn't
that so crazy? Just even talking about fast cars and stuff, everything is just getting bigger and better and more. It's just
Definitely.
It's just, when's it gonna stop? Is it gonna be a 500 amp alternator in a 2030 Ram? I mean,
well, there's a way. I'll show you guys this one because I brought it, but this is a Mitsubishi version of a triple wind. I don't know if you guys can even see this, but you see how there's three on this one?
Yeah.
Isn't that wild? So the design of this platform is on a tolerance so tight that when Mitsubishi basically made they got in trouble for trying to copy the patent that Denso had. So they got sued by Denso, and when Mitsubishi came back and finally Denso let them have it, the way, whatever platform they were trying to build, their version of the Stator off of. When they finally came out with this, it was definitely better, because if you're going to copy something, obviously it's a lot easier to improve it, if you're going to copy something. Anyways, this was Denso's way of firing back, was this line of the semi units that John was talking about earlier. So they both kind of have fought back and forth at least once on, who's king shit in the industry, I guess, or who has the better design. Reality of it is they both do really badass. They both idle close to the same. And these components too, you'll see incorporated more in the future into a lot of the units that we're building too.
I got a question for you. The air gap between your stator and your rotor, the tighter it is, does it put out more amps?
The tighter it is, the better tolerance you have for idle output. I mean, it's all super minuscule. That's you're talking 10, 15 amps there.
Yeah.
That's BL, cuz.
What?
That's BL. Tell him, Mike.
An old argument people used to make all the time was when they used to rewind slot wound stators, was if the size of the wire played a role in output. And the reality of it was it didn't really have much to do with it at all. It was all, basically how the stator is actually wound, because, it's all math that goes into it when they do it. Tom has a machine rewinding, doesn't he?
Used to.
Or
I don't
used
know
to.
if I don't know if they use it anymore.
So
they use IWI mostly now.
yeah. So basically, at this point,
You can buy cheap
hairpins.
Yeah.
They've
Yeah,
replaced
paying
all
someone
of
to
it,
do something for 4 hours
or
a day
something
when you're paying
similar,
them 8.
like the Mitsubishi version. So,
Mike, do you have a base car these days?
you know, I've got a 95 Accord wagon I'm trying to put together right now. I had a C-pillar build in a Yukon, and if you guys remember Blake Hunt, Blake bought the Yukon off of me after I had just pretty much got everything dialed in. I had 1215s. They were DC M2 XLs behind my third row on 6 American-based 150.1s. It was really fun while it lasted, but typically when I was the happiest with it, like, and got it where I wanted it, was when Blake called me up and just made me a cash offer for the truck that I was like, okay, come and get it. Here's the keys.
Yeah.
Because I wanted the capital for the company too, to be able to just grow the company more as well. But at this point, I got this cheap 95 Accord wagon, and I've already ran the car on 14-volt batteries at like 16.5, and the car didn't have a problem with it. So
did you bypass the ELD when you did though?
John?
Yep.
Mr. Jonathan Patrick, do you have a base car?
Yeah, we have I have a 2006 Silverado with 6 stereo integrity 24-inch subwoofers with the Sundown Team Neo V2 motors.
What?
Jesus.
We're running 3 Crossfire 16Ks.
Are you making that up? How have I not seen this?
You haven't seen our truck?
You haven't seen the video?
The video has like a couple 100,000 views. How have you not seen the video?
I haven't seen it either.
Oh,
Dude,
you guys.
So that's that's 2 links we have to put in the description. We gotta put Ginger's
Ginger filter
clips in the thing, and then the
Ginger filternators.
and then the
Thomas was telling us to do a podcast the podcast.
That's why I asked if you were just making shit up, because I feel like I should have seen that by now.
You probably should have. Yeah, that video actually made its rounds pretty well.
Oh my god!
Yeah, I'll find the video and tag you once I find my phone.
That's
fantastic.
crazy. That's crazy.
Are you kidding
It's
me?
weird how some videos just go viral
I know.
in like a day like that, and you really wonder what triggers it. All the
Because
shares.
it was dope.
Obviously.
It was 24 subwoofers trying to rip someone's hoodie off their body.
So that's yours.
Like-
That's your personal vehicle.
Yes.
Okay.
Skip, you remember the eyeball video?
Yeah.
The Steve
Oh,
eyeball
God, yes.
pop-out video? Stuff like that. You know?
Double. That's it.
I mean, there's
Roth
obviously a
is
good
happy with
reason
that
for
video.
that.
You have to watch it.
That's obviously a good reason for that one going viral. I mean, give me a break.
Yeah.
You're gonna rip somebody's eyeball out of their socket. That's pretty.
Her glass eye fell out when she was getting a demo in the window.
Right. I mean, it wasn't as dramatic as the title made it seem.
It was exactly. It was factual though. Her eyeball came out from base.
I was actually more fascinated with the science of the sound waves making the glass move that they showed on the Discovery Channel. But that's me.
Nerd.
So you guys, I forgot to tell you, this was kind of interesting. A company
Just
in
tag
I
you in the
think
video, by the way.
Norway, they were filming a show on what their version of like Discovery Channel was, and I think they bought a video off Richard Mallard too. But they bought the video from me, the rights to use the video on a show called What Happens Next. And it was one of the Eclipse with the windshield like flexing in it and the windshield breaking and stuff. But anyways, they PayPal'd me $500 for them to just
score
use the video on their show for like not even a 10-second clip of it. That was it.
I'm like, yep.
Dude, you're just balling out
bro.
of control.
Got that YouTube
video.
money.
That was probably like 6, maybe 5 years ago, if I had to guess, something like that. I had a missed call from out of the country, and I linked it to this email they sent me, and I said, yeah, you can have the rights, and they had me sign something, like scan it and send it back, and then they PayPal'd me the $500. Well, actually, they sent me the money first, actually.
That is so fantastic. Skip, where's our
YouTube
money, man?
Suck. We need to
start a Patreon account or something.
Yeah. Just donate, bro. I don't want to do the work. Just people donate money to me and just
everybody send it.
Let me spend
PayPal's money. EveryDay audios at we need to get paid.com.
Go fund.
Roth, tell us about your base vehicle, man. Also, people want to see your booty clap and a nipple and you chug a beer. I don't know what
booty clapping you're going to see is John.
the comment section is obsessed with Roth.
Chop, 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 chop style.
What was the first one?
Yes. All right. Step 1.
Get in the
booty
shot.
clap.
Get in the shot,
Step 2,
too.
nipple. Step 3, tell us about your base car.
They want to talk about your Jeep. Do you know their beer right now? Hey, Mike,
Yes, give him another beer, guys.
I'll take a beer.
Chug.
You will take a beer right now?
Sure.
Yeah, we gotta dumb this conversation down a little bit. We need to ply everyone with alcohol.
Yeah,
I can't even handle John right now.
you know, we
Killing
could
me.
we could touch on some other topics other than anything alternator related too, if you guys want.
Honestly, actually, I remember back in the day talking to Stanley Howard. I remember, y'all remember 80 inches?
80 inches.
Yeah.
Yeah. He just called me the other day. I got to call him back. You're throwing me under the bus right now. He's the one guy I forgot to call back, man. And he's got a local guy that actually wants to set up as a dealer for me right now. But all those New York guys, man, they're all really cool. Keith, Doug, all those guys, anybody in that surrounding area. I've probably known all those guys the longest. Anybody, like I said, in that surrounding area, but those guys go back with me to the car audio days before I was actually building alternators. So
I was talking with him. That's actually another topic I wanted to talk to you about, but I was talking to 80 inches. I don't even know, 8 years ago, 10 years ago. And we were talking about 6 orders, dual reflex Bandpass.
That's my only conversations with him.
Yeah. And
only Bandpass.
They were like, Mike Singer's a Bandpass master. Are you still?
Dude, nobody knows it now. Like he said, nobody knows him from the Eclipse, but nobody knows Mike was behind a lot of loud freaking builds, dude.
All of those builds, Skip, they were all just like trial and error for me, and I was one of those guys that had beginner's luck of throwing something in and it just working a lot of times. And like I would model the builds after I would make them. I would never run a model like on Basebox Pro. My friend Jay modeled the wagon after I built it, and the vehicle was doing it was capable of a 150 sealed up at like under 1100 watts. And if you can do a 150 in any build like with 2000 watts or less, I mean, I would consider it pretty efficient. But the real test is once you start adding a lot of power. Some builds like these guys, that had a vehicle that flexed a lot more. Once they started adding a lot of power, all that efficiency went out the window because, they were losing all their score.
You're not talking about anyone that's in the room in particular, are you? Maybe named John?
No, I wasn't. John's got a guilty conscience. I was making fun of him. No, I was just speaking in generalities. Like once everything starts flexing a lot, everything changes.
Those are losses. Those are losses. That's
everything so much.
That's right. That's why we deaden. That's why we use the. That's why we
use expanding foam, whatever you want to use.
But it looks so cool when the door goes flippity floppity.
Yeah,
it's bad.
For like a week.
Bad.
That's what gets the viral vids, bro.
Any demo video anyone's ever taken of anything I've ever had is horrible. It's terribly boring.
Nothing.
It's like an extreme vehicle.
But Mike, earlier that actually brings me to a good question. Is you're like a dealer network sort of guy, right?
I'm not. I'm the opposite. I'm like David Moore, and I still deal mostly directly with the consumer. And John, I don't know if John's more dealer based. I think John also deals directly with the consumer.
I make posts about it regularly. Do not do dealer.
One of the big differences between me and John is I do set up dealer pricing for people, that are my dealers, and I set up, consumer pricing, but I have 2 prices to eliminate price discrimination. What I always tell people, I'm like, it's like Time Warner Cable. There's always somebody pissed off because your neighbor down the street is getting the same service and he's paying, $40 less than you or something.
Wait,
and that's
can you explain? You lost me there.
Eliminating price discrimination is just having 2 set prices, one for a business and one for consumers, unless somebody's doing something promotional where they're doing like a build where they're like, giving you exposure or buying like a large quantity. of something, which obviously is going to yield some sort of discount. And I'm sure
Sure.
John operates the same way in some element as far as quantity goes, but John deals mostly or only directly with the consumer as far as
Okay, all right. So just to clarify, you deal direct with customers, right? Somebody messages you or on the website or whatever.
Yeah.
They get $300 for this alternator.
Yeah.
And then if one of your dealers sells them an alternator, it's $300.
No, the whole point of having dealers is obviously to give customers incentive to buy from them. So my dealers are going to receive pricing that yield a lower price to the customer, if that makes any sense, than coming to me. I'm going to be higher if they come to me.
So it's 325 if you go straight to you, but 300 if you go to one of your dealers.
That's a good example. Yeah, it gives the customer incentive to buy from dealers. Otherwise, what's the point in having dealers? A big issue with a lot of audio companies in general now is like, people go straight to the manufacturer and end up paying less money. So
yeah. So you're exactly opposite the way it should be.
What's
I like that? No, I like that. That's right. If you're gonna bother me directly, baby, my time is worth more than yours.
It's not really so much that, man. It's just more the fact that I respect my dealers. So
100%. Yeah.
If you got to keep your lights on, man.
Dude, there's so many companies out there right now, and I'm not just talking about alternator companies. So many companies and brands out there that do not respect their dealers, and not even just don't respect them, straight disrespect them.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not sustainable.
The cool thing about me not having a ton of dealers, shout out to like Rob Lancy, Rob Hips, those guys, like they give the customer like sort of like an elite feeling of, okay, I'm buying an alternator from like Singer because, there isn't like 40 shops around them that also offer it.
That's right.
So that's the cool thing about having a limited number of dealers sometimes too, being more consumer based,
So what's the business model with CES there? What's going
on? Direct to consumer. We're a wholesaler. We don't deal with dealers. Not necessarily in a negative way, just it's more of, I don't want to throw any names out there, but there are certain companies that are dealers that will sell substantially below like MSRP or like whatever price point that they're supposed to sell at. They'll go way below it to make a sale, which I guess doesn't necessarily affect me if I were to sell the unit. But one of the reasons why our price point works the way it does is because we are direct to consumer. So we have no dealers at all. I don't have anyone else out there that needs to make a certain amount off of something to make it worth their time.
Can't step on toes.
Yeah, and that generally there's a lot of audio shops that have switched to us, but they make their money off of install or something along those lines. Similar with Mike, a lot of shops that are buying alternators from me aren't buying one. They'll wait for a flash sale like we do. I don't know if you've seen like our flash sales before, but we sold like 320 amp alternators for $245 when other companies sell them for $500-$600. We offer that, and if I don't really give you like a limit, like how many you can buy. Last flash sale I did, a dealer in Europe bought 35 of them. He bought 35 units, and I shipped them to Europe, and he sold them at what our normal retail price is. That kind of thing I don't mind as much, as long as I have some kind of direct contact with the consumer. The only reason why I like to have direct contact with every consumer is just so I can rule out installation issues and stuff like that. One of the reasons why you won't see too many failure issues or stuff like that, at least on our end, is more so the fact that I don't sleep a whole lot. so someone at 2:00 in the morning, I'm available. I have my cell phone number and every single instruction sheet. If someone needs something,
I don't sleep, so I'm going to test you on that.
Okay, message me at 2:00 in the morning. If buy an alternator from us, you'll get my cell phone number.
No, I'm not buying an alternator from you. I'm going to Ginger Filters.
I'll sell it to you for dirt cheap.
Yeah. But I mean, that's just, we're a little bit different as far as that's concerned.
So that's weird. Are y'all at like CES right now?
I drove to Custom Electric. It's probably about like a 45-minute ride from where my shop is. So I don't know why, but Jake Ballard 4 years ago posted that they make my alternators on one of the alternator classifieds, and he did again tonight. And I have no idea why. I mean, people come to my shop and watch me build their alternators in front of them. So I'm not really sure why, he thinks or anybody else might think that
it's a misconception.
My products are being spewed out of Custom Electric.
Yeah, it's a misconception.
Well,
middleman.
Custom Electric just gets their shit from Tom anyway.
Yeah, definitely. But we sell it for less money. That makes way more sense.
People used to say, because I was in Ohio, they used to call my alternators Ohio Generator or MechMan, and it's like,
I still get that question all the time. You guys like, Ohio Generators?
It's like, what brand is it going to be this week, man? Bottom feeders, man. Just, people looking.
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
You got to move out of state.
At this point, you just kind of laugh it off because, I mean, it's obvious that we're different companies. I mean, Mike used to do a lot of stuff with us, and we used to do a lot of stuff with him. And now it's like, again, we still work together on some stuff. Like if him and I can go in on buying like a large quantity of like a new unit, we'll do something like that.
Hey,
but what?
Someone wants to know where you found a hat big enough to fit that.
A large number of the competitors that respect each other,
bro.
They help each other.
Is
just
that a
like
prescription hat?
It's really the reality of it. There's a mutual respect for people, and they help each other, and that's the way it should be. But obviously, that doesn't include everybody in the industry. So
what is there? So y'all talked about like you do like German, and he does such and such.
Yeah, that's like a small aspect of it. There's so much more, man. There's so much more that we have our our pros and cons to.
Have you ever turned anybody away? Like, no, I can't do that. Sorry, stop it. Get out of here.
Have we ever what?
Turned anybody away? Like, get out of here.
What car can't you do?
Right.
In the last 10 years, I'm not joking. I think I've had to give out. I've been to a point with someone where I've had to give them their money back, if that's what you're asking me. There's been one guy that came through Keiko, and he was buying through a dealer, and basically posted a review on a product of mine that just pretty much seemed like it was engineered to just bash me.
That was the plastic guy, right?
Yeah. And I ended up turning him away, giving him his money back, and he just ran through other companies. I would see one other brand like within a year or two get butthurt by this guy, and it would somehow the posts would end up making it on the forums or something, or Facebook. John talked to the guy. When the guy talked to John once, he's like, "Oh, Singer told me this would happen," and John goes, "Yeah, that would happen." And he called John a Mike Singer nut hugger and like blocked him or something.
Yeah, this is the guy that's that guy. Yeah, no, he was talking about something on a Mazda where like the Mazdas have a really complicated computer control they have since like the 90s. Basically what it's PWM as well. It's post width modulation, where it'll actually there's basically like a little ring around the battery negative, like a little plastic current sensor. That tells it tells the computer, hey, we're making this much amperage. But the problem with this is that it's limited to like the 90 or 100 amps or whatever the alternator is rated to. After it goes over that, it basically just shuts the field input to the alternator off.
It actually makes a high output alternator perform worse if it's set up for the factory plug. We tried it on a Mazda Speed in my shop on Brian Pinner's Mazda Speed, and that was when from that day forward, me, and John eventually too, when he started working here, started doing forms of external regulation on those cars. And you usually, you get a battery light, but the guys with pop tuners and stuff, they can shut the battery light off, stuff like that. So they didn't really care, so it was there were different ways to bypass it. And this guy just was,
So this was a problem customer, not a problem vehicle.
What's that?
This was a problem customer, not a problem vehicle?
Mainly, yeah. A mixture of both. All the Mazdas, a lot of them are dual regulated. It's like the best way, my version of John's explanation is it's half internally regulated, half controlled by the vehicle. So, it's just better to go around it. But anyways, what I was saying earlier is as a very small number of people I've ever actually had to been to the point where I've had to give them their money back, but I'd never burned any bridges or I guess left somebody like where they have animosity towards me, if that makes any sense. If some people choose to still like post a bad review or something, I mean, maybe it'll still happen. I guess you can't make everybody in the world happy.
They're in Japan, Joe.
All right. So Skip and I we're gonna tennis ball it back and forth here. All right. So we're gonna play a little game. I'm gonna name an alternator company, and the three of you are gonna describe that alternator company in 4 words.
You gotta understand one thing. I don't got a company I represent.
I don't care. You're on the screen. You're on the screen. So, all right, y'all ready? I'm gonna say one, then Skip's gonna say one. You ready? All right, and Mike's gonna start, and then we're gonna go John, and then we're gonna go Roth.
You want me to say the brand, or am I gonna say the
I'm
4 words?
gonna
This
say
is the weirdest
brand.
game I've ever heard.
I'm gonna say the brand, and you
Go grab a beer.
give me 4 words about that alternator brand. You ready?
Brief sentence.
Sure.
Brief.
1 second.
Yeah, 4 words. Where the hell did John go?
You went for beer.
Bring his ass. All right, y'all ready?
Yep.
Ohio generator.
Old.
Is that? You want me to give you 4 words?
4 words.
Okay. Old school. Mom and pop shop. If I'm allowed to keep that as one
That's
word.
enough. That's enough. John, your turn.
You went for beer.
What? All right, Ross Show, your turn.
He said
Old.
He said old.
Won't innovate and stuck in his ways.
That's too many words.
I don't care.
4.
Oh,
I didn't say it.
Bang
settle
bang
down, man.
bang bang.
Burning Bridges. Ross Show's Burning Bridges.
Oh
over
man,
there.
I got a new one.
Hang on. We gotta have Jonathan.
Who do you think?
All right, 4 words. Ohio generator.
Describe in 4 words.
4 words.
Good quality, old school.
Yeah, old school.
No,
All
you
right,
didn't know.
Skippy.
Oh, I gotta go. What is it? I don't even know if that's the name of the company.
Excessive amperage.
Yeah, excessive amperage.
That's a tough one.
That's a tough one. 4. He got it.
There you go.
That's
Do
a
it.
tough one.
That's what you want to say?
That was it.
Your turn, Meow.
Yeah.
No, we'll give you a do-over.
Higher volume GP alternators.
It's
All right, next.
Super glue.
It's fucked up. That's enough. Next.
I'm not even trying to be mean. That was a joke. That was a mean joke. But yeah, that's all I got to say. I only got 2 words for that.
Super glue.
Super
You don't
glue.
have to use all 4. All right,
Yeah,
Roth.
you don't have to use
Show.
all 4. You could break it up into like, yeah.
4 words. Describe them. Very few seem to work, I guess.
I didn't say that.
That's a
I
new
didn't
one.
say that.
I don't see much of them.
You know,
That is
Fade,
like
you
that's
might
quiet
as well
genius
just
from
have
Roth.
roast every company there is. It should
Quiet
be like
genius.
the roast. You should name Custom Electric and Singer next and see what kind of crap comes out of his mouth.
Actually, I will. How about ginger filternators?
Ginger filternators. I can't say anything about my own brand, so it's all you guys.
No, you got it. Just give me the buzzwords. We'll stomach it.
The buzzwords.
Yeah.
I'm going for the kill shot after this.
Denzo.
Made in America.
Denzo.
Yeah.
Assembled.
Handmade. Custom.
There you
I
go.
don't know.
That's good. Well, yeah, John. Ginger
Custom
filternators.
quality, custom quality alternators, America.
Awesome.
America. Change my answer to America.
Roth Show.
Very, very long wait.
I said leave it up to him for the blast words.
Yeah, very, very long.
Hey,
That's,
That's about the worst thing I could think of, though.
He's right. He's right.
Yes, you may.
When I'm busier, it's between a 3 to a 4 week lead time, and my lead times go up and down, obviously relative to you know the flow of things and components and everything else.
Hit him with it.
Me?
Yep.
I'm gonna go for the kill shot, and I don't want 4 words. I want some stuff. It's coming out. It's coming.
Substance.
Yeah, it's coming, dude. Y'all know what is coming. The chat been calling for it. They want it. They want Iragi. I'll mute Taylor. I'll mute Taylor right now.
I will not stand for this.
Just give me something on it. Just give me something, y'all. What y'all heart to heart feeling about the company? The company, not the person. The company.
Let's hear it.
Super butthurt.
Wait, what?
No, it's not your turn.
Yeah, that's the person too.
I've never met Dom in person. Dom's set in his ways. I would just say he's set in his ways. He has his own methods.
That's it.
He blocked me because he was wrong.
What about the company? What about the company, not the person?
I mean, that's when you are the. I mean, that's.
Is he a scammer? Is he a scammer?
Your last name.
I would say my keywords are buy one get one free.
Oh, BOGO.
When you got to do that, that's usually a pretty
I don't know. That's pretty awesome.
I know that's what I mean.
I think that's what Randon Fall wanted to hear. He wanted to hear buy one get one free.
Look, does he? Have you ever worked on an Iragi alternator?
Yeah. Have
you? Any of you ever? Huh?
I'm positive. Okay. The one positive thing that I could say about Dominic is that, like, say, was it like 10, 15 years ago? That was like a really good quality product back then. But it's just the same kind of thing that when it comes to like Ohio Generators, where it just they have something that works, so they do like rinse and repeat, which is okay. But he did say doesn't forward because he wants the best he can get out of it.
Yeah,
that's the best that I can say. Is that, and Mike said it too, stuck in your own words or something, and that's fine. But
have either of you ever repaired one of Dominic's?
Yeah, I don't hate Dominic. I just don't understand why I got blocked from him and why Mike's blocked from him and why like generally anyone else that might have a different opinion from him.
I've been blocked the longest. I've definitely been blocked the longest by him,
like
for
6
sure.
years, something like that. I've been blocked for about 2 years, 3 years.
Ever since he said, we put popsicle sticks in our alternators too.
Oh my God, I remember that.
Yeah.
On the fade on the hand winds, there's a wood shim in some of these every so many eliminations, but it never caused any sort of issue. That was like
some of our alternators are like 10 years old.
Yeah, you're going pretty far back, but these are all the same companies like that were doing the rewinds for other brands too. So I mean, some of it is shared, which is kind of like making fun of yourself. Or if you go to like a cheap Chinese manufacturer for parts, it's not much better.
I mean, look
what I mean.
Like Dominic Martino.
I totally remember the popsicle sticks thing. Listen, so is he like basically Ohio Generator, like stuck in his ways?
Yeah, he's old school and set in his ways for sure.
He's doing large case hairpins now, though.
He will still
like 5 years. Yeah. He's only like 5 years away now.
We still see hairpins sometimes from him, but
just block happy.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've got like any other manufacturer's alternator in for rebuild. People typically come to me that are all original customers. I was looking on PayPal this year, and PayPal said 39% of my business is repeat, which is kind of like a good like foreshadowing for John to go by, in the sense of obviously the other 61% is that figure is more like 80 or 90% because the other 61%, all their stuff's still working, so they don't need to come back. So
that seems like a bad statistic.
It's a good statistic. 39% of your customers being repeat business is great, because that 40% that's coming back is
something new.
They're up. I'm not saying it's warranty. I'm saying they're changing vehicles and sending their old alt in for a recase, which me and John both offer either credits or recase options. And some brands won't even do that. That you buy an alternator from another company, we'll even still help you versus telling you to eat shit. Some companies, they'll choose to do that. So being smaller helps with that, obviously. John has his limitations on that because he has to build his orders too. So when you're doing higher volume, then it's going to create a little bit more limitation on giving people options for recases or for, fixing competitors' alternators too.
We know. just tell Charlie we know.
We know.
Charlie, we know what Tom says. It's okay.
All right, so we got a couple more alternator companies to go through here. We'll try to keep it shorter than the raggy, and then we're gonna wrap it up. I'm gonna toss out DC.
We talked about them a little bit earlier, but
again, volume, billets, California.
I mean,
they're in Vegas or California, one of the two.
Yeah. I can't keep it as short as 4 words, but I mean, they used to make a really good product. They U.S. alternators kind of took in they jumped in that area where DC Powers used to be like that void where they would make something for anything. Like it's like U.S. alternators. One thing that I can definitely say about them is DC Power. Same thing. If you have a vehicle that you're willing to pay for it, they'll make something for you that no one else will.
Well, somebody just jumped in the chat. I think put a word in y'all's mouth, and it is overpriced. Is anybody scared to say that? Roth, do you have anything to say on DC?
Was before my time. I really don't know.
Info. Brett, what you got?
This got to be one of the biggest ones still for a long time. McMahon.
Yes.
McMahon. I think they were the first high output alternator
Seriously?
I bought.
I would say Evolved. They also Valium. Very dealer-based company, I think.
I'm like
John's
words.
going.
That's
trying to figure out what it's gonna be. My turn. Soon to be number 2 alternator company.
Oh, bang bang.
I'll tell you what, man. Matt always treated me good.
No, Matt's a good guy. That's my competition.
Matthew Young Young's a very good friend of mine.
Yeah. There's no point in time by saying that Matt's not a good person, but that is my competition. Like when I say I don't affect Mike's sales that much, that's true. We don't really touch each other's sales. But like if anyone sells, they are probably what I would consider the gold standard for a company. They've been around long enough and they have a reputation that still stands to a certain point. When you're saying like a DC Power, you don't hear about them too much anymore. I know Brett was talking about that earlier. That you still hear about McMahon. You see them at shows all the time still and stuff like that. That's more along the lines of like what I'm striving for, and just a little bit more customer service oriented. That's all, and less dealer oriented. There's 2 things that separate us quite a bit. The fact that I give like more hands on, like I'll be at a show and I'll rebuild your alternator regardless of what company it is right there in front of you. When they're more of like,
is that a thing?
What?
Is that a thing? Rebuilding your alt like on site?
I did it at Slimology. I rebuilt a JS and a US alt at Slimology in the person's car.
I've helped.
I took the mount off.
Shout out US alts.
Slid the rotor out and actually replaced the rotor in the guy's car, in a guy's Saturn.
Is it my turn? Because I'm gonna say US alts. Did we say that one already?
We didn't.
Daniel Martin's another friend of mine. We've known each other in the car audio world before alternators. I was talking to Dan before he had started his company. It's more of like a smaller business venture for him. He really wants to offer a good product, is how it seems. And, he hasn't been around too long, but he's made some waves now. I mean, he's been around long enough, but
he does his own work and all that.
Dan,
I'm assuming he left the forward.
Yeah, he does. He does his own.
Someone definitely commented that.
He does
other than the cases.
Control, as far
other
as
than some of the cases.
The cases.
So the billet.
Well, this is where it create. I try not to create drama with this because we're the only company that went out of our way to spend $100,000 on our own CNC to make our own billet cases. And typically other people will outsource them. I'll even outsource some of the work now at this point because you just simply can't make everything yourself. I mean, it's not economical for one, and time-wise, it's also an issue. But, he has billet cases made. He does casted cases. He has his own sources. But we make I would say more than half of our billet cases at Singer, we make ourselves on our own CNC that we own. We bought all the tooling, everything. We got like 150,000 in it at this point.
You should get more mileage out of that, dude. For real, you should get more mileage.
I don't want to hop around and brag about that, like I said, though, because it really doesn't matter. People made the point of it not really mattering.
It does to me.
Like to brag about it, but it's just one of those things that it's still at the end of the day, it's if you're obtaining parts to give somebody a hairpin option for their vehicle, that's still a better alternator. It would be like if I'm using a frame that John has or John uses a frame that I have. Every once in a while, if we're in a pinch and, we want to share one, we will, to just give somebody a better option instead of forcing them to use something that's worse. So, I mean, regardless of what the customer thinks, like morally by it or whatever their thought process is on it, we're making something better for them. So that's all that really matters at the end of the day.
All right, John, U.S. salts,
right?
Yeah, U.S. salts.
Like I said, they kind of filled in that void where DC Power was, just because, like I said, DC Power isn't too prevalent in like the audio world anymore. They're more of like the other side of our business, like contracts and stuff like that. They kind of stepped in where they'll make an alternator for just about anything. As far as how they make it, that's a little different, but like it just they filled in a gap in the market, and they seem to be doing a pretty good niche on it. So I'll give Dan
Roth show. What do you think?
You can ask a couple of my friends. I mean, I really don't pay attention much of Facebook drama and other companies and whatnot, but they have a pretty cool logo.
Yeah, he designed the eagle. He said that. He did tell me that. He designed.
You have that. All right, Skippy.
Of
I don't know anymore.
Just off the subject. This comes up a lot on some of the forums. I was reading the comments. eBay alternators and companies, a lot of companies that come from eBay and stuff like that. People are always asking about like PowerMax, BNR, Eagle. Starks just told me to talk about BNR and stuff. Me and John have both tested Eagle and BNR, and it really like all the ones that at least I've had. I don't know about John. They've been stock alternators that they're selling as a high amp on eBay. PowerMax is the only company that we've actually clamped, around rated out of on most of their units. So they're the only company on eBay that's like being honest about ratings. I'm not saying anything in terms of quality. But as far as ratings go, they're the only company that is actually
just avoid it.
Branded regulator that I'd never even heard of before.
They're reconnecting
like,
a Stator, or they're at least modifying the alternator in a way for it to make more power.
I did see one comment that I'd like to address. Hold, please.
So you're better off just getting another OEM.
What a company is making. If you can see, this is pretty dusty. We made that like about 4 years ago.
Oh God.
The 540 amp unit. When people call it a prototype, this unit's been around for like a while. We've been making it for like a really long time. I get that it's cool and it's new for them, but there's a reason why we don't sell it a lot. 540 amps in a single unit is a really bad idea. It's just the amount of heat generated from 540 amps is ridiculous. And and again, like we're talking about interchangeability of parts. As far as like Denso is concerned, Mitsubishi actually is who manufactures the unit that you start with to make the 540. The issue with that is that it has 35 amp diodes, and the heatsink is really cool looking. I'll give them that. But like as far as this being able to hold up to like say the test of time at like a 390 amp or
Dan Curran, I just read your message.
It's not.
We gotta be getting messages.
Yeah, so I haven't checked them, but as far as this standing up to the test of time, other than like being like maybe a burp alt or something where someone's just trying to like
burp alt
short music run. I mean, that's the only I've sold 4 of them. I've only sold them to people who want one alternator, like class limited stuff.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Like okay, you can only charge a certain voltage or be at a certain RPM and stuff like that.
I think some classes are like 1200 RPM and stuff, and etc. Yeah, and most of them are. But
these triple wound units really are good in original form because they're already badass. We
modify it to fit the vehicle in its stock form.
Yeah, that's exactly. And it's doing like, I'm seeing like 320. I saw 321 out of one before he peak, and at cruise 300 and 260 idle around like the normal idle RPM figure I give everyone. It's like, yeah, like 833 RPM is like, touching like 260, 270.
What did Dan Kern say?
You sexy mother effer.
What did Dan say?
He said Mike Singer is sexy.
Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go.
Got him worked up. Facts.
All right, last question.
Yeah,
we gotta wrap this up.
Yeah,
man.
yeah. This is my this is my.
Listen, I got one, and then you can go.
Oh,
all right.
No, mine's better. Mine's better.
Make it simple. Go around the horn.
Oh God, this style
again.
Make
it simple. Make it simple. If you cannot have a Singer or a CES, what alt would you pick? Go around the horn. Don't think about it. Just say it. Go.
MechMan.
Yeah,
MechMan.
There we go. All right.
That was super easy.
How about a hard?
That was pretty easy.
Actually, no. Yeah. I'm not taking mine back, but I would say 50-50 Apex MechMan.
What the hell is Apex? Stop bringing in new shit.
It's new shit. You'll see more of it.
For real, what is Apex? Now we all got to go and do Google searches and researches and go to your page and shit.
There you go. Well, I gave them a shout out.
Nice. Apex.
I tell you, man.
Skippy, you got anything for these
guys?
Yeah.
This it might be a longer question. I don't care. I want to know it. So back in the 80s, we had the biggest one was 60 amp alternator or something, whatever it is, just small alternators. And now you're talking about a 500 amp alternator. So what's the limit, and where do you foresee it going? I mean, are we gonna ever eventually get to 1,000 amp alternator?
I mean, you could, but like John just touched on earlier, the problem is the alternator is just it's gonna, if it's capable of making that power and you can actually pull that much current, it's just gonna self-destruct. You could do everything you can on the rectifier side and the output side to try to keep it from damaging itself, but there's a lot of steps you got to take to do that, and it's going to drive the cost of the alternator like through the roof. Like even with these triple wound units, there's a lot that's going to go into them, like custom making a rectifier. We were just talking about it because they have 35 amp diodes in the rectifier. 35 amp diodes are really only suitable for the alt in its current form, modified to fit another vehicle.
Until aftermarket parts become available and stuff like that, it's not really an option. I think. I mean, you're good to like 300 amps with the alternator and the way that it is, and that's about what it makes with an overdrive pulley. It just the mount on it is for a Ford truck that fit 1 year vehicle. Mm-hmm. It's not something that you can really make a bracket for because it has 4 different mounts on it.
Yeah,
it's just that's why we have to basically take that frame, take the guts, put it in something else to make it fit your vehicle. Cost wise and something like that, it gets pretty high. We sell the unit in a 300, we call it a 300 amp double XL. That's what we sell it as. They do around 240 amps at idle. That unit is $699. For us, that's for our brand at least, that's a lot. Most of our units are between the $300 and $400 range. When you get to like our 370s and 390s, that's when you get to like closer to the $500 range. That's where I try to keep everything more budget conscious. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that I don't want to touch some of the customers that say like Mike talks to and stuff like that. And it's not necessarily that I don't want to like affect his business as much as some of the customers that Mike has are not necessarily in the realm of where I want to be as who I'm going for. We're more along the lines like social media driven, where Mike has a lot of competitors and stuff like that.
Being around as long as I have now, like I was telling you guys earlier, with a 40% repeat business factor on customers that come back or recase and stuff like that. Like these are people that I've known in the car audio world before I've even done alternators. So a lot of it is that community too. So again, like when people are buying
answer your question
from John and they're buying from me, it's like the transfer percentage is like of customers is like very low between us.
To answer your Brett's question as far as how high you can go. We have a 650 amp unit. It's just not something that works very well for an application like audio. That's more for quick accessory draw.
It's not practical.
Yeah,
it's like a SPL alternator.
Yeah, if someone just wanted to use it for that, I'd be glad to sell it to them. But you're gonna have to take it off the trailer and put it back on the trailer. Because it's not gonna. You driving at that and trying to play like music or something over an extended period of time. Like that's for someone who's like they have a bank of caps. They have a large bank of caps, like several banks. And several is even a low number. You need something where you'd be able to utilize all that amperage very quickly. And that's what Taylor was talking about before, where caps can take that amperage super fast, but it also disperses it really quickly. Yeah. Batteries and stuff like that, it's not something where like a 600 plus amp alternator really makes sense. Just because if you generate that over time, even if you put 3 output studs on it, your connections to this from the stator to the rectifier are only like 6 to 8 millimeters thick. I mean, it's not, you're trying to transfer that much current divided by 600 amps divided by 6. That's a lot to get thrown through something that's, say, 6 millimeters of copper. It's just,
somebody give John a beer.
What?
Somebody give John a beer.
Oh, sorry, I'm talking too much again.
I'm just kidding.
I figured that.
Hey, we got to wrap this up, man. We got to wrap it up. So, if any of you guys have any abridged,
we can find out.
Parting thoughts, we'd love to hear them. Mike?
Any what? Bridged what?
Abridged parting thoughts. We got to wrap it up.
Parting thoughts?
What time is it?
Yeah, it's like
I would stay on this. And the way lithium batteries have evolved, just do your research when you buy a high output alternator to make sure you have enough batteries for your system first. Make sure you go off what the manufacturer for batteries. I'm not talking for anything else. What the manufacturer suggests to you, is required for your power, then consider, getting an alternator and invest in a charger that's very, very good quality. The better chargers use better logs and better, equations, the math that goes into how it communicates with the battery based on.
Which one do you suggest?
Values. So it's good to invest in a good charger, good to invest in good batteries first, then get your alternator.
A bridge version, CS for the win, yo.
Word.
If it's dope, it goes viral.
And look, we wind up the show. We're gonna wrap it up with the Roth show.
The
Roth show.
Yeah, both of y'all can leave. We're gonna talk to him for.
He makes me think like Peter or whoever it was on Rover's Morning Glory. That one guy that did all the dumb shit, stuck his balls in like a bear trap. I feel like that's
Roth would stuff his balls in a bear trap. Probably. Actually.
I didn't stop it. It's still going. I love it.
Just quit it on the Roth chug.
Yeah. We appreciate y'all, man. This was fun. This was by far our biggest
fun.
show. This was by far.
Yeah, it was a great one.
Anytime.
Yeah.
All right.
Talk more.
See ya.